Wow, Neil Armstrong. Hey, wait a minute. You're supposed to be on the moon. I just saw it on TV.
Oh, there's a tape delay and with all solar winds.
Nobody that I know of in my field uses the so-called scientific method. In our field, it's by the seat of your pants. It's leaps of logic. It's guesswork.
You don't see the curvature of the earth. That stuff is flat.
Glowbusters taking over. Bye-bye, moon man and rover. NASA's so mediocre. Sorry, but your ball is dead, but your ball is. Glowbusters taking over. Gotta ride this roller coaster, but the truth is getting closer. Sorry, but your ball is dead, but your ball is. Get the shovel for the space hubble, piecing up the puzzle. Need to burst your bubble, evil gonna crumble, yeah? Sit down and be humble, got the ball, you better fumble. You're getting mad, cause at this fight I'm Bob's your uncle.
And then they call me the liar. I mean, it's absolutely unbelievable the pathetic techniques that they have to use to prove their heliocentric model.
Bob shot the president, Jeran got the evidence. Arrows slaying Jesuits and Zack is evident. That the earth electric and it's resonant. Your resident is heavens and I hope to settle in like some sediment. If we so wrong, why they lying to discredit it? That's not too intelligent. That's a guy, not an in court, but we ain't really in the settlement. It's time to awaken from the pseudoscience sedatives.
Glowbusters taking over. Bye-bye, moon man and rover. NASA's so mediocre. Sorry, but your ball is dead, but your ball is. Glowbusters taking over. Gotta ride this roller coaster, but the truth is getting closer. Sorry, but your ball is dead, but your ball is.
Inner World Productions.
We accept the reality of the world with which we're presented. It's as simple as that.
And welcome everybody to Globebusters. Hey, still no heliocentric proofs. Unbelievable, isn't it? I'm your host, Bob Xanadude60, and we are back with another great Sunday show for you today. And have all kinds of nifty stuff going on today. We've got Jeran and Austin are going to be completing the presentation that they made last week, that they started last week, which is basically a huge concoction of some of the top physicists over the past 100 years that have been saying, hey, you know what? We cannot seem to find any motion to the Earth. Hey, you know what? It seems like the universe is Earth is at the center of the universe and cosmic microwave background. And hey, you know what? It's not going anywhere. So nobody has ever been able to find any motion to the Earth. Nobody has been able to find any anything except geocentricity, us being at the center of the Earth. And of course, last but not least, there is no curvature, and there have been hundreds of experiments done to that effect. Now, if those three things alone don't at least get you, kind of curious to find out why, I don't know what to tell you. But we have got literally dozens, hundreds, maybe even thousands of proofs done by professional scientists, amateurs, you name it. We got them. So it's pretty crazy. So, all right, let's go ahead and get to the panel today. Let's go ahead and introduce first up, as always, Mr. Jeran Campanella from Jeranism. How you doing, Jeran?
Thank you, Bob. I think that's the first time you've ever used my last name.
I think it is. Got to break it up a little bit, you know?
Yeah, a little something different, a little curveball. Fantastic. Great Sunday. Happy to be here. Thanks for joining the show, everybody.
Very cool. Okay. Whoopsie. That isn't what I wanted to play. I wanted to show you guys something in the background. Just going to play this in the background. This was sent over by Dave Gordon. This is kind of cool because he shot this with this P900 of the star Arcturus. And it looks really cool. Cool footage, Dave. So thanks for sending it to me. So I'll play this while we introduce our next guest, who is Mr. Austin Whitsitt from Whitsitt Gets It. How you doing today, Austin?
Doing great. We are coming up on finally moving into our house, so we're just, lots of things going on, trying to get all that set up and figure out all the furniture, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, should be cool, and got a lot of cool stuff coming up content-wise. So that's pretty much it, just a bunch of stuff behind the scenes, and happy to be here, per usual.
Awesome. Very cool to hear. All right. And next up, we have Mr. Zachary Zabala, or Good Times for All, if you prefer. How you doing today, Zach?
Hey, Bob, doing great. I don't know, these last few days I've been helping Dave beta test a new feature he's adding to the app where there's just a little pop every time a new person signs up for the app. And you think it might get annoying, but it doesn't. It's a different noise than your notification, so you know what it is right away. And it's just this little reminder, hey, there's another flat earther. Don't give up. Keep going. Yeah, I love it.
There you go. Cool. All right. Yeah, that's he's got, I cannot believe how much stuff he's putting into that app. He's got thousands of dollars into it, and he's got so many people all over the world. And it's funny because, we're just barely making a scratch in the Hispanic, the Spanish speaking community. And man, if we start getting a lot of those people in there on that app, it's going to be up into the hundreds of thousands before long at all. So, but yeah, it's quite a little asset, and it's really neat to be able to find all the flat earthers in your area. So I've got it, have had it since day one, and I think it's amazing. All right, cool. Next up, we have Mr. Kyle Adams from the Flat Earth Institute of Science. How you doing today, sir?
Doing super well. Good to finally make it to the first hour here. Someone pulled the fire alarm at church, and so I was like, whoa. And so they let us all out earlier, and so here I am.
And you didn't do it, huh?
No, I didn't do it.
All right, we'll take your word for it.
Very happy to be here with you, though, nonetheless, the first hour. Yeah.
Very cool. All right. So, very nice. Okay, so one thing I wanted to mention, oh my God, I cannot even believe that I didn't have this up. Let me bring it up. Hang on just a second. I forgot to put the little fundraiser that we are doing.
I have the link.
You have the link? You want to drop it somewhere and I'll put it?
Sure, I'll put it both. I'll put it in the YouTube chat and the Rockfin chat.
Okay.
Or what do you mean? You mean put it in the Skype chat? So
wherever you want to put it. Put it in YouTube, Rockfin, and in our chat so I can show it.
Okay. There you go. There's that.
All right.
And I'll put it in YouTube as well. So yeah, after the success of Hibbler, if people don't know, Austin's moving into a new place, and he's going to be trying to stream a lot more, and wanted a little kind of studio like what I've got going, and needs a new PC, but was going to be a while until he was able to afford it. So we're going to try and see if the community can take care of that. Plus, I wanted to do that because I didn't get him a wedding present.
Yeah, so, neither did I, and I feel bad about it.
So I figured I'd set this up and then throw him some money towards his computer, and that would be a great wedding present. So that's what we have on.
And I will be building it. It's going to be pretty much spec'd nearly identical to the one that we got for Sean Hibbler. These are they're both outstanding graphics processing machines, and I mean, I'm serious. When I say they are outstanding, I mean I am envious, drooling. And I don't know, the guy that donated them, does he mention, did he want any credit, or does he want to be anonymous, or it's just amazing.
Yeah, not yet. Maybe eventually, but right now he wants to make sure everybody's system is up and working great, and then he'll take some credit.
Yeah. Okay. Well, boy, I guess the ball's in my court, isn't it? So yeah, I've got Sean's ordered, and as soon as we get this to a decent point, which I'm sure this will probably finance pretty quick, because if you want to help Austin out, get in there and make a donation. Like I said, I'll certainly be making a donation to it, as well as building the PC and, putting on some nifty software that we can put on there with it. And, I really feel that Austin is going to be making some really great videos because, when I discovered Austin, and, I kind of did, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I discovered him on Facebook, and I was just impressed. I was just very impressed with his knowledge, with his attitude, and everything about him. And I just really thought, wow, this guy would be fantastic to bring over into the YouTube ranks. And so I kind of recruited him into the Globebusters. And, since then he has been out and, gone all over the country and had a few interesting scrapes with the law, but we've all learned a lot out of it. It's provided a lot of information, a lot of entertainment. And I got to tell you, Austin, it's just amazing what you've been through. You've been thrown in jail. You even got thrown in jail in a couple places. Yeah, a couple times you did. So, I mean, wow, you really have done a lot for this community. And I just want to tell you, buddy, we appreciate it. We really do.
Thank you so much, man. That means a lot. And that is crazy looking back, because that's what got me on YouTube was you reaching out to me. I was just saying rants on Facebook, but it means so much to me that you guys did that. It really does, because I'm basically doing like everything I can, like credit cards and all, to try to set up a studio room. And I'm like, there's just no way I'm going to be able to get the computer too. So this is like, I feel extremely honored. So I really just wanted to say thank you to you guys, and thank you for the kind words as well. And to anyone, of course, that does choose to support it.
Yes, absolutely. And, these aren't the first two we've ever done. I personally have built, I think, 4 or 5 different PCs, given away, just straight up given away 4 PCs to people in the community that I thought were doing a good job, and I don't mind doing it. Of course, now I'm no longer in the computer business since we moved to South Carolina, but I still do have my my wholesale contacts, so that's a good thing. I can at least get that, but I won't be able to be doing that for much longer, because then you got to pay taxes on it. You know how that goes. So, so I really enjoy doing it. I have put a lot of money into this community because I really believe in the people in it. And we all know that Lord knows this world it's got problems. It really does. And the best thing that we can do is come out with all the truth that we can, and, battle all the craziness that is going on with it, and just try and, get the truth out there. And that unfortunately deals with having to every single day be called stupid and morons and idiots and all this stuff. But you know what? That's fine. That's fine. That's what it takes. That's what it takes. Because when you get it, when you understand it, you see it so clearly, it's the truth. And that is why there are so many people, joining this community, not because the world is full of retards, but because the world is waking up, and the people that are fighting against it are the ones that are still actively asleep. And so, you may think we're pretty stupid, but we just, we were once you at some point. Some people came over a little bit earlier than others, and that's great. And other people's fought it, tooth and nail. And however you get here, when you do get here, you're here. And we just don't really have people that go back unless, of course, they're made a very financial attractive offer, which, the other side has done for some of our people, which is amazing. But, everybody's got to do what they got to do for money, right? So whatever.
Anyway, what else would we want rather than this, right? So for me, Austin's a good person, that I can tell. I met him down in Venice Beach, and we hung out for the day. I got totally sunburnt, but besides that, it's important to me that somebody is a good person. That's first and foremost. And I know that not everybody in the community is, but the ones that are, we need to celebrate and kind of rally around. And the world's a wreck. And so, especially getting married, having a baby, I think that's the only way we can really repair things, at least as quick as possible, would be the right people having a lot of kids and getting new people, brought up the right way. So everywhere else, it seems like there's like egomaniacs. And so do I have a problem with people that are truthers that are trying to make money doing this? Absolutely not. Like Bob said, I know people need money to live. And if somebody can do it doing something they love that also is helping others, that also is revealing truth, then we should celebrate that. And in this community, I don't see that enough. People think of that as a negative thing. But it's a tough thing to be able to do. And I think as a community, we should be able to help those people. So hopefully this is one such situation. And yeah, I don't know if you saw Bob on the right-hand side of the page there. He does have a couple perks that we put, not there, I guess. Where are we looking here? I'm looking at the wrong screen. I thought there was perks listed on that page. I guess not.
I thought there was too somewhere. Where'd it go?
I don't know. Let me check my version. Now I'm looking at the screen. You're on supporters. Go back over to where it says campaign.
Oh, okay. There we go.
So there's just two of them. He's going to do a stream after, if it's funded, when he gets his new setup, and thank all those people that were the $30 and up, and then the $50 and up. He's going to do a hangout. So that's cool. There's something there that comes with it, and yeah, it's just going to be awesome to have him as a full-time streamer. We'll get to see him a lot more, and not always on his phone at some outdoor event where we can barely hear him.
Yeah, exactly. I wish there was a better way to get you, more stable internet, but if you really want the good internet, it is expensive. One thing I will say though, I've got the 5G through T-Mobile, and this particular 5G is down in the 900 megahertz range, and the speeds are absolutely amazing. They're, 750, 800 megabytes, down and a couple hundred up. And I've never had any problems, when we had to go off of the phones. So I don't know. It almost seems like that may be something for you to try, Austin, depending on where you are. But I just think that when you're down in the 900 megahertz range, you will have a lot less problems with interruptions to the signal. Because when you get up into the 2 gig, 5 gig and above, they start getting really spotty, and then you start getting the errors and the kind of problems that you're getting. So just something that you might want to consider. Of course, now that we're going to be neighbors, you can come over and maybe try it off of my phone one of these times and see what you think. And if that works for you, that'd be great, because I don't know who you're using now, but I don't know. It just has been very, very iffy,
Yeah, it's no good. I have just a bunch of different Verizon devices with plans, but so like I said, I decided, I was thinking about everything. I have a baby coming on the way, so I was trying to decide, do I really want to try to go all in and make money with content, or just do content when I can and do something else, start my business back up or whatever. And I decided that I felt like I should at least give it my all and go all in and try on the content thing, because I know I have a lot of creative ideas and blah, blah, blah. So I decided to do that. So long story short, so then we decided to get a house while she's pregnant, and we'll be parking the RV there. And of course, prerequisite for any house that we looked at was at least 1,000, up to 1,000 download. And so we will finally have official, fiber optic, real internet, and hopefully it's good. I talked to the guy we get in the house from to get it bumped up and maxed before we moved in. So that's kind of where we are with that.
You know what though, Austin, I got to tell you, the next plan, and I assume this is through, Spectrum?
Charter, yeah.
Oh, Charter. Okay. Well, I don't know about how Charter works, but
well, same thing, right? I think.
Okay.
Same thing. Charter, Spectrum.
Because Spectrum, I was on the gigabit, and then I dropped to the 450 line, and really the upload speed is only 5 megabits different on the upload speed, so it's around 30 megabits. And 450 down is more than enough for anything. you
Oh
can
yeah,
run.
yeah, I agree with that for sure. Like, I just because of my experience with internet, man, I'm like, whatever, bro. Monthly, like, business expense, if you want to call it. You know, like, it added $80 to it, and the rest of it's included into the rent. So I'm like, bro, no brainer, max it out, and I guess I get a little bit more upload. And I talked to Charter, and they said that Spectrum said they're about to start increasing the upload speeds relative to the package. So hopefully that happens. From my understanding, yeah, like you said, 400 is plenty download. It's just much more like upload, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And most people, you know, need I mean, we need upload speed because we're streamers, but, you know, honestly, for the extra few seconds it may take to download something on a 450 line versus a gigabit, you're better off with the 450 line. And there's a pretty substantial difference in price too. So, just offering some tips.
Yeah, Julie noticed. I just definitely one thing we're not gonna do is keep on having the streams look like they're from 1995.
Yeah, I hear
I
that.
don't know if you noticed this too. I've been doing a couple consultations for streamers, and people don't recognize the importance of being hardwired. They think that, you know, Wi-Fi is the same. If you're streaming, you got to hardwire your internet.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, for sure.
No,
I didn't know that.
No, the hardwire makes a huge difference. And of course, and that's because the Wi-Fi is, you know, typically 2.4 and 5 gigahertz. And that's one of the things that I really think is amazing about the T-Mobile 5G, which is in the 900 megahertz range, and it kicks ass. I mean, it's absolutely amazing how well it does. So, you know, that's just a good, and I've been with every company out there, I think, and I don't think any of them have ever been able to even touch the performance of T-Mobile. So there you have it. At least that's the way it is here in South Carolina.
Yeah, that's crazy because also AT&T has fiber optic now, and their upload speeds are 200-300, but it just isn't offered at that address. So it is what it is.
Yeah. Well, there's fiber in there. There's copper and all that good stuff. So yeah, there's all kinds of different ways that you can get it. But yeah, it can be quite, you know, maddening because, you know, and sometimes you never know. Even with good service, you know, we've had a few times when we've lost service when everybody else had service around us. That's frustrating, of course. And, you know, I don't know. So it is what it is, but you just got to deal with it, and everybody deals with it. So there you have it. All right. So anyway, guys, if you want
good advice to go by. I'm just thinking here about, you know, for a lot of like the new upcoming flat Earth, you know, the next generation here, and don't let, you know, these high standards throw you off there. You can do it. Like a lot of people, you don't have to go all out just to start off with. You can start off with very basics and primitive stuff. And I remember some of my inspiration just in the beginning was the channel The Potter's Clay, and he doesn't voice his voice at all in any of his videos. He just shows words on the page and just plays music and shows like just really basic stuff. I remember some of the stuff he shares is just a bunch of memes. He collects memes on Facebooks and just makes a big slideshow and plays music during it and does phenomenal doing that. It's great. And so, yeah, if you want to
today has
up,
been
though,
a.
I think that's
sorry.
great advice, though. You're fine. So I just wanted to get that out because I love helping out the new upcoming generation.
Yeah, absolutely. Very cool. All right, guys. So what I'm going to do is, Zach, are you ready to kind of show your experiment at any point here?
Zachary.
Earth to Zach. Come in, Zach.
Come on. There we go. Oh, hold on.
You go. Come on, damn it. Okay, we hear you now.
I need to like uninstall and reinstall Skype. My mute button sticks only when you talk to me.
Well, that's par for the course. I think you just have to be a little more patient with it. I think we'll give you a little extra time because of that. I know it does that, and sometimes that does that to me too. And again, you know, I wonder how much of that is, you know, done to us on purpose or what. But it's hard to say. Who knows? Maybe it's those electronic little electronic demons that get into equipment that they start doing stuff like that. So anyway, what Zack has got here, whoops, let me go ahead and share the correct screen here. And let's see, view, speaker view. Okay, and screen share right. All right, so you guys should be able to see Zack's apparatus here. And basically what we've been doing is we've been reading some new papers on the Tesla coil, right? And what actually makes it work and why it was important that, Tesla actually had an earth ground to it. And
Bob,
there's some, I'm sorry.
I only see the donation page still. Are we supposed to be seeing something?
Oh, you should be seeing.
Are the views
you should
wrong?
Be seeing views. Yeah, you should switch over to Zack's view.
Okay.
Okay, and let's see. Speaker view. What is the problem here?
Do I have to share it?
Well, yeah. Oh, you're not sharing?
Oh, that'll do it.
Yeah, you have to share it. I'm seeing it as part of a share, but
there we
go. There we go. Yikes. Okay.
Started sharing it. I was like, okay, I guess I don't have to do anything then.
Nope. There you go. Okay. So anyway, Zack, sorry about this, guys. Zack had built this apparatus all by himself, by the way. After watching some of these videos, because, as you know, we're very interested in the, electric construct. And if Tesla really did say that, that this is a realm and it's part of a Tesla coil, or it acts like a Tesla coil, then we can kind of see what he means here. And if you guys are familiar with Wardenclyffe Tower, one of Tesla's big things that he really wanted to be able to do was transmit energy wirelessly. Well, unfortunately, when they came in and got Tesla's, notes and all that stuff, I think a lot of it really came up missing. And so, these little tidbits of Tesla's information are kind of, they're kind of, streaming into existence. I don't know where they're coming from, but, more and more are coming into existence. And we're reading it and we're trying these things, and we're actually starting to get some really interesting results from it. So I'm going to go ahead and let Zack take it over and see what you guys think. And go ahead and take it away, Zack. Tell them what you're doing.
Yeah, a lot of you have probably already seen this setup, done videos on it, multiple videos, but we're going to go over it again for a lot of the new people and people that just don't kind of get it yet. So we have our Van de Graaff generator right up over here and the discharge wand. This will create a high potential while this one creates low. To make it simple, I'll just say a positive and a negative. So we have our negative or our positive plate hooked up right here. Coming to this, I have 2 pizza trays here with a copper coil in there. I just wanted to add a little bit more density to the plates so they could hold more potential. Did the same up here. So we have our positive running to this plate, 2 pieces of styrofoam acting as insulation so they don't discharge. And then the negative discharge wand is running to the top plate. So this is like our earth ground right here in this demonstration. And this will be the sky. But we've reversed it. And when we found out, when we do that and we apply a charge to it,
things stick to the top.
Acts like this is again the ground. Now this is how our world is set up, just reversed. We have high potential above us and low potential below us, and all the matter within is kind of, I don't want to say forced, but it's like a pressure mediation. It's releasing that potential energy that is stored in the matter. Because of where once it hits the ground, it becomes the same charge as the ground.
That's
now,
right.
all matter acts different. Some are insulators, some are conductors, and it's a big scale. So they don't all act the same. It's really neat. And air, actually, water is the greatest insulator. That's why this is really hard to do if you're in a humid area. I tried setting it up outside in the garage. I couldn't even get a discharge of like 2 millimeters. I couldn't get it to discharge at all. And as soon as I brought it in where it's cooler and drier, I started getting it to be able to work.
Yep. And one thing you have to understand, people, is that when we originally kind of started thinking this theory out as it was an electromagnetic type of influence, but unfortunately, not everything responds to magnetic fields. But one thing that absolutely does respond to everything is electrostatic fields. Electrostatic fields has an influence on absolutely everything. Why is that? Well, because everything, no matter what it is made out of, whether it's water or air or gas or anything like that, it is made from charged particles. And of course, when you're dealing charge against charge, this is basic electricity, basic electronic circuits, and you will be able to influence absolutely every type of matter, whether it's an insulator or a conductor or anything like that, with an electrostatic charge. Okay. Now, when we say that this is what's going on flat Earth. We take this, you guys have watched this before when we talk about this. We talked about the 100 volts per meter electrostatic potential that Richard Feynman, talked about and defined, all the way up to 50 kilometers, which is 5 million volts. I tend to believe that there's evidence, well, I know there's evidence for it going up to as high as 62 miles or 100 kilometers. And, just to briefly touch on that, those evidences are that we have this type of construct here on the flat Earth is the firmament, is the top Gaussian plate, okay? Now remember, and so same thing here, except it's charged positively, right, on flat Earth. And the Earth itself is negatively charged, which is the bottom, okay? So we know that because of that, it has given us a gradient of 100 volts per meter that is absolutely measurable. There's no doubt about this. You cannot deny it. It is an absolute fact. Now, some of the things, like I said, that tell us that these Gaussian surfaces are there and that they are exhibiting electrostatic charge are, well, first of all, the old Star Trek, remember the Star Trek article? Something's hitting these Star Trek like shields that's going on up there. That's one thing. Another thing is these observatories are firing 25-watt lasers at something that is called the sodium layer, right? Which is up there at about 100 kilometers, right? Why would there be a sodium layer at 100 kilometers? That makes absolutely no sense whatsoever in a heliocentric model. Okay, another thing that happens is, of course, sprites and elves, these anomalous discharges that go from clouds. Not only do they go clouds down to the Earth, but they also shoot upwards, and they are hitting something right at 100 kilometers or 62 miles, right in that zone, which means that there has to be something there that has a charge potential high enough that it is attracting that electrostatic charge. Okay, so all we are doing when Zack is doing this is we are simply emulating on a small breadboard type of thing, the same thing that we have evidence for that is going on in this flat Earth. We're not trying to match it to a ball Earth, because frankly, science has no real good explanation for why we have all these anomalous changes in the atmosphere. And of course, they had to completely create the ionosphere to explain why we were getting such a far transmission from some of Marconi's transmissions, right? So we're doing this from straight up evidence, not from conjecture at all, right? And now we are breadboarding this, and we're showing you that, look at this. There's little electric static, what are those things? Styrofoam balls, right? You can use hair. You can use biological matter. You can use steel flakes, anything. And Zack can flip this upside down, right? Now, when you get, now obviously we're doing this on a very, very low scale here. This is pretty low voltage compared to the at least 10 million volts. And that's at a basically an idle or an average condition that's going on in the flat earth model, right? But the point is like I've said before a million times, we can actually take this and we can demonstrate these effects, and we can scale them, right? Here it is. What Zack is showing is the flat earth model electrically scaled down. All right. So hopefully you guys understand this, and I will continue to bring, all kinds of proofs forward. Just the other day, I showed you some very interesting evidence that was showing that, some of these magnetic gravity hills, they're called gravity hills, that one of the guys in the community actually took a level out to these places, and not only did his car roll the opposite direction from the level, in other words, it was rolling uphill, but he showed it very clearly on the level. And again, when you have these electric type of gravitational anomalies, you also typically have magnetic anomalies, right? So the evidence is all over the place, and I'm just compiling this list, which I haven't even hardly even touched on today. But if you've been following Globebusters, you know that we're just adding on to this. It's a preponderance of evidence, and we are absolutely replicating what is going on in this realm. So, what Zack has done here is showing the mechanism behind what we are calling the downward electrostatic vector, okay? Because when you have a positive upper plate like he's showing here and a negative lower plate, right? Obviously it's going to draw things down, right? That's easy to show. We've shown that. He's shown that with balloons. We can override that Earth static field and cause things to float, right, in between it. Zack has done that. We've shown that just, several times. And this is, again, this is not something, we're not interested in explaining the heliocentric side of this because it doesn't make any sense. It's nonsensical. And of course, we also know it's a lie, right? So what we're going for, oh, absolutely, Austin, we can do that. I just forgot to. So anyway, we're absolutely doing this. We're making it small scale, and this is the nature of our flat earth realm. And the thing is with this is you have some people out there, and this is something else we're going to cover today. There's another side of the camp. It starts with Anthony Riley and a guy named Flatzoid, and they are pushing this model called relative density disequilibrium, in which they are saying simply that relative density disequilibrium is all that is required. No downward force is required at all. And that's simply not true. And in fact, the way they're describing it, they're almost proving, the baller's case for them, trying to make a case for them by saying, oh no, it just goes down because it does. Things don't go down just because they do. There's got to be a mechanism behind it. And this is that mechanism that we're destroying, that we're demonstrating here, and showing how it works. So that's what we're doing. And Zack, you want to continue on?
Yeah, this right here would be about 3,000 miles. About every half inch is considered 1,000 miles on a 12-inch pizza tray. That little piece of paper, to scale the Himalayan mountain range, the whole range, would be 3/4 of an inch long and would be less than the width of a human hair off the surface. So this is, 20 times taller than Mount Everest, that little piece of paper right there, just to scale. So if I had, bigger plates and more power, I could float a mountain probably.
Yeah.
Just saying. That's how the scaling works. But yeah, it's very, very simple when you think about it. And there's no magnetics involved. I used to think that too, that it was all electromagnetic. But this is scalar. These are scalar waves. These aren't like the regular magnetic wave where the magnet and the electricity, like a snake kind of come together and then make a bow and come together. This is different. This isn't like a radio signal. This is more of a all-encompassing field.
Yeah, exactly. Flat Sabbath says ballers have no down. That is correct. I mean, their model of gravity, first of all, gravity means gravitas means weight, right? Well, I would argue whether or not gravity, that's actually what it means. It means weight. And I would argue that weight is actually a force. When you put your weight on something, you're exerting a force on it. Unfortunately, the pushers of the RDD theory are saying that you don't need any type of downward force whatsoever, and that is absolutely not true. And the thing that gets you there, that proves that, is say for example you are talking about gas. Now this is something else that is another big point of contention that Nathan Oakley and company have really blown it completely. He says that gas is homogeneous. Basically, it goes all over the place. When you release gas into an evacuated field, that it goes in every direction. You know what? He's absolutely right. It does. But the problem is he is sticking a little too closely to something that is called the ideal gas law. Now, what the ideal gas law is, because of the fact it is very difficult to predict exactly what gas does what, the ideal gas law basically is just saying that when there is a stimulus to the gas, i.e. heat, right, or pressure, then that gas is going to continue to go around bouncing all over the place, okay? But when you take away that stimulus, right, then the gas is going to actually start to slow down, and then it's going to actually succumb to that downward electrostatic force, right? Why? Because it's not being stimulated by pressure increases, and it's not being stimulated by heat, right? So unfortunately, they are completely misunderstanding the application and the purpose of the ideal gas law. And even the people that invented the gas law, the ideal gas law, tells you that they only made that up to make it easier to explain mathematically. Is it true? No, it's not true. And they'll tell you that all day long, right, Zach?
Jeez, oh Pete. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was taught in high school physics. That isn't even your upper echelon college courses. In high school physics, when they teach you about the ideal gas laws, they teach you, can we use them, to kind of teach people and how the gas is going to react in this? Yes. Does it make it real or reality? No. It's imaginary. The gas in a balloon, when you blow up a balloon, there are so many different gases, and there's moisture in there, there's dust particles, there's so much stuff. It is... Oh, crap.
So what happened?
The thing is, I think the government already knows about this kind of stuff. Like, if you've done major research on flying saucers, for example, you can't miss Hitler building flying saucers way back in Nazi Germany, right? And so yeah, people know about this stuff. There's so much more technology that the government has its hands on that people just don't know about. And so when I think about, all these different UFO sightings, yeah, the government has some crazy technology being able to do some crazy stunts because they know so much more than they let the public know about.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And they do a lot of stuff like that, to make the math easier. They do a lot of stuff to make the math easier. And I don't know what happened to Zack, but I think he lost something. He went, oh shit. And I hope you're okay, buddy, because I didn't like the sound of that oh shit. And he had to drop out, and I guess he's going to come back. So what I've done is I've gone over it. And what I want to show you guys is the ideal of this idea of this relative density disequilibrium. And we're going to talk about why this simply does not work. And, and I don't want to sit here and harsh all day on Nathan Oakley. My position is he's wrong, point blank. I don't like the fact that when he disagrees with you, that he wants to know how his balls taste. And, he completely talks harshly about people and like they're less than human. And, and this is somebody that has no scientific training, and that really, it gets under my skin. It really does. But you know what?
It's okay for people to disagree with each other. And so I don't agree with a lot of things that Eric Dubay says. And that's okay. That's okay. We're different people.
Yeah, exactly. So, whatever. We would be much better off, working together and, being a more coherent model, because, Nathan does a great job arguing a lot of points, but when he starts getting into this really childish, area that he goes off into, it turns people off. And, I think his views definitely reflect that. But anyway, like I said, I'm not here to harsh on Nathan or anything like that. I just want to explain this relative disequilibrium, density disequilibrium to you, and explain to you that it's nonsense and that it doesn't work. It simply cannot and does not, for several reasons. So let's go ahead and play Flatzoid's video here that he's talking about RDD and why they think that, this is the cat's meow. Here we go.
I usually get the same response from Globers when I tell them it's relative density. But why? Tell me, why does it go down and not up? If the air is less dense above, why is it going down and not up? Hi, Flatzoid here. Lately I've been getting a lot of questions asked by the globe believers on if it's relative density disequilibrium. Why does it go down and not up?
Yeah, and I think, beyond that, the question should be not so much why does it just go down, but why does it accelerate as it goes down? There is no other direction. They're trying to tell us that, there is no preferred direction in this world, and there most certainly is, and that direction is down. It is earthward. That is provable in every way, shape, and form. And, not only is that direction a preferred direction, but it also does something that is, kind of inexplicable. They will sit there and try and tell you that, well, when you lift something up above a table and drop it, what you've done is you've increased its kinetic energy and you let it go, and then it falls back down and reaches equilibrium. No, it really doesn't, because when it falls back down to whatever it's resting on, it is still exerting a weight. That weight that is there that will take over immediately. If you take whatever is underneath it away, it will continue to fall straight down. So, none of this makes any sense. This is just so crazy. It's ridiculous. But let's continue.
The usual response I get is, why is it not going up? Because according to relative density, it falls through the less dense medium, and there's less dense higher up, so it's supposed to be going up further. Well, I'm going to try and explain it to you why it's going down and not up. And also for the new people that you don't understand what RDD is, relative density disequilibrium, stick around. I hope I'm going to explain it in simple terms that you'll be able to understand what the concept is and how it works. Well, first we have to start with, what do we see in reality? Everything we see has foundations. Where is the foundation situated? Every tree has foundation, its roots. Every building has foundation at the bottom. Every rock foundation, everything has a foundation, and that foundation is at its core at the bottom. This foundation is very important, as this is the static equilibrium point of the object. I hear you saying, hold on, What is static equilibrium? Well, put it simple, static equilibrium is just a place where the object sits in static motion. In other words, it's where the foundation is holding it and supporting it enough that it doesn't move anywhere. Okay, now that the foundation is sorted out, let's move on.
Okay, but again, it's holding it there, but that doesn't mean that there is not a force still being exerted on the foundation. How can you not see this? If you put a scale underneath that wrench, is it not going to show a weight? Of course it is. Do you think just because you put that wrench on the foundation that weight force is going to go away? Of course it's not. That is absolutely absurd. The ballers will sit there and try and describe this and say, well, the static equilibrium is basically what happens when the floor pushes up at the same pressure that whatever is sitting on it is pressing down. Now, this is just nonsense, right? There are so many other factors that go into that, the structure, the tensile strength of the floor that it's resting on, so many other things. You cannot sit there and just say, oh, well, it's at an equilibrium, and that if anything changed at all, it would, continue to go down. It's ridiculous. And I think, Kyle, didn't you cover that in one of your videos too, when you were talking about the baller's position on that?
Which part exactly?
When they were.
I talked about Brian Cox and how Brian Cox claims that the Earth is continually accelerating upward. That was Brian Cox's claim.
Oh yeah.
I also talked about Einstein and how he couldn't make up whether things are falling or rising, and I don't know, he was all confusing. So I talked a lot about gravity and
but this specifically
claims.
What I'm talking about specifically here is, when they assert that when you set a weight down on a floor or a table or something like that, that the table is then pushing up with that same amount, all right, is pushing back. And it's like, no.
Newton's third law.
Yeah,
Newton's third law. I did a big thing on that. Newton's third law. And I made a big thing talking about the magnetic bonds, the molecular bonds between the surface and how it's not pushing anything up. And so I compared that to my elevator experiment, and my elevator experiment says, when we actually take the floor and make it rise, we can feel a difference, and every different object is going to experience.
But if the floor was actually doing that, then when you took the wrench off the floor, then the floor would continue to rise too, right? Or whatever you're putting it on.
Exactly.
That is why it is such an absurd notion. There is no static equilibrium being meant there. That is a complete. I can't believe people fall for that. That is not true at all. There are a million other things that are, factored into this, not the least of which is the strength, the material that it's made of, the actual weight, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But one thing, if you were to,
Newton's
carry,
failure.
If you were to carry this through to a logical conclusion, then the ballers would be right? If you don't need anything to be, pushing up or pushing down, right? Then why do they need anything to hold the gas in, right? If it's just going to go down there and it's just going to stay there. I don't know. I don't know exactly how to get this through to them. I understand what they're saying, and I understand that they believe that this is going on, but it really isn't. And what's amazing is, if you read some of these comments, like for example here, while the mic was holding onto the wrench, it was a static equilibrium already, right? Yeah, it most definitely was. All the forces acting on the wrench were equal. There's no difference from the static equilibrium point of reference between the ground and his hand. And yes, he can actually raise that up above it, and that will change the potential force, but it doesn't change the fact that it's already at a static equilibrium, right? So you can, and not only that, the only thing that will truly get you that, and the other thing that proves that there is no static equilibrium is the fact that, if you put gas in a vacuum chamber and you let it, you let that energy run down, then the natural electrostatic downward, force is going to take over, and those molecules are going to slow and slow and slow, and to the point where they turn into a liquid, typically most of them. And not only that, gases, if they didn't go in all different directions, and if they weren't susceptible to density themselves, then gases wouldn't layer, right? They would all just mix up and be homogeneous. Well, they're not. They do absolutely mix up. We know that the helium gas and the hydrogen gas are, way, way, way up at the top of the flat Earth, at the top of our atmosphere, where they are being held in by a dome, right? And they are lighter, and they're lighter, yes, but really what it comes down to is they still have a charge. Helium and hydrogen both have they're very light. People say, well, how come helium balloons go up? Well, the reason the helium balloons go up is because you have such a very low charge. If you look at the static number of helium, right, you will see that it's only got hydrogen, for example, only has one electron and one proton, and helium is just a little bit more than that. There's only a slight difference in electrical charge, which means that the natural charge that is being put on these Gaussian surfaces for the flat Earth has a very low effect on them. Low, but not gone. The only way you can make it gone is if you go completely to a complete vacuum chamber. And when you have a complete vacuum chamber, then you no longer have anything to charge, and you will have the gases all sitting on top of each other, in order of their density, period. It has nothing to do with, it just does it because, and, you've lifted it up in the air. What is that one gas?
Sodium hexafluoride, right?
Yeah. We've demonstrated this with several gases.
Put that into a big tub and they can float things on gas.
Yes.
Because the gas is dense enough to float a little tinfoil boat on. It's just floating on air. It doesn't do that on normal air, only when you contain this gas in a container, and then because the gas is so heavy. Gas does have weight.
Yes, it does.
Different weight.
And that weight is brought about by its charge. And just like all weight is brought about by charge, because of the downward flow. And we've demonstrated this. In fact, I'm going to play this video one more time just so you guys can see this one more time as to how this is actually happening. Remember the Richard Feynman video where we explained in detail, where he explains in detail, mainstream science knows about this 100%, that the 100 volts per meter is there, and it always is there, and it always will be there. So this is how it works right here, guys. Oh, wait, this is part 2. I'm going to go to part 1. My bad. Let's go to that one.
YouTube land. This is Good Times for All, or Zachary Zabala if you prefer. In this video, we will be explaining how incoherent electrostatic acceleration creates the downward vector. Gravitation, a word which many do not comprehend, is a theory that was created to explain the paths of the luminaries above, and what keeps them in orbit around other bodies, including our Earth. It has been known and taught in college-level physics courses that the electric forces that hold the Earth together are 26 times stronger than the gravitational forces that are supposedly here on Earth. I will now show you a short video of former MIT physics professor Walter Lewin explain this quite clearly.
Can you stop that real quick?
So what holds our world together?
Okay.
Just real quick, I said 26 times stronger. It's 10 to the 26. It's actually 1 quintillion times stronger than the gravitational forces felt on Earth. We can't measure the gravitational forces on Earth. That's why they had to make LIGO.
Right.
The electrostatic forces, though, are a 1 quintillion. That's a 1 with 27 zeros behind it. Times stronger than gravity.
we can't measure the gravitational forces because there is no such thing as this mass attracting mass thing. There is no such thing. How in the world do they think that you could possibly detect gravitons? They don't even know what gravitons are or anything about them. And so what do? They say, well, LIGO detects them. Well, how does it do that? Well, it when the gravitational wave goes through the arms of the LIGO apparatus, it shortens them by about the width of a proton, right? Which is absurd. And so we have no backup for that whatsoever. We have no demonstration of that. We have no proof of that. That is absolutely pure conjecture. I mean, gravity, the way that the mainstream has defined it, is bullshit. It doesn't work. It's not there. It's not real. But the downward vector absolutely is. This is a very real phenomenon that takes place between Gaussian plates. And this is, electrical engineering 101, people. This is not hard. And honestly, the only reason that I think Professor here is saying that, well, it takes place in outer space is because that's kind of what they have to say, because that's the whole reason why gravity was invented, right? Oh, well, yeah, the gravity, that's what explains the Earth going around the sun and the moon going around the Earth. Yeah, we don't know that. They don't know that, but that's what they're teaching. Therefore, he has to say that. But he does say quite clearly, huh?
I think he was, because he lost his tenure. He was kind of kicked out of MIT. And I believe he was kind of teaching too much almost.
I agree.
Like when he would teach about the ionosphere, he would also teach that the man who came up with it created it without any scientific backing whatsoever. No experimentation done, no testing, no observations, but it had to be. That's why they made the ionosphere.
Yeah.
He comes out and flatly says it in this course, the 802 Electricity and Magnetism.
Yeah. And of course, out of all this, Einstein just, willy-nilly, arbitrarily, mathematically eliminates the ether. And that's even more absurd because without the ether, none of this works. Without the ether, we have technologies that are in use today in jet airliners and in all aviation and in all navigation that require the luminiferous ether, because relativity denies the function of the ring laser gyro or the fiber optic gyro. Without the ether, they don't work. Well, you know what? They do work. And they work to an extremely high degree. But then they try and twist it by saying that, oh yeah, that those very sensitive length measurements, the width of a proton, are evidences of it detecting a gravitational wave. Absolute and utter complete nonsense. Not true at all.
Just think about what you were talking about last time about how they use the term ether all over the place. We talk about Ethernet. Why would they be calling it the Ethernet if the ether doesn't exist? And it just kind of gets slapped on a lot of different things. And I wish I could remember it all off the top of my head, just like that. But we talked about it before, and it was amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh yeah, we can go through it. I don't want to go through it all again today, but I will keep adding to it and adding the proofs to it, building that preponderance of evidence, because I really don't think we're wrong on this, guys. I really don't. And there are so many holes in this RDD theory. It's insane. And for you not to be able to see that, let alone acknowledge that not only does it have a preferred direction in the universe, but it causes an acceleration in mass that goes through it. And, for as long as I've ever studied engineering, when you have something that is accelerating an object, that, the first axiomatic law of physics and mathematics states that there must be a force that causes that. Okay. And that force is not gravitons. It's just ridiculous. So let's continue.
Well, on the nuclear scale, 10 to the minus 12 centimeters, very important are the nuclear forces. On an atomic scale, up to thousands of kilometers, it's really electric forces that hold our world together. But on a much larger scale, planets and stars and the galaxy, it is gravity that holds our world together. And now you may say, that's very inconsistent with what you just told us, because didn't you tell us that D cancels if you compare gravity with electricity?
Yes, but keep in mind that most objects in the universe have only a very small amount of charge per unit mass. The Earth and Mars have each a charge of about 400,000 coulombs. The gravitational force between them is therefore about 17 orders of magnitude larger than the electric force. So even though our immediate surroundings are dominated by electric forces, including your own body for that matter, the behavior of the universe on a large scale is dictated by gravity.
As you heard, the professor state, gravity does not take place until we start talking about a moon orbiting a planet, the planet orbiting a sun, or stars orbiting the center of their galaxies. I fully agree that this is a theoretical concept that is unproven still today, and find it odd that they need ideas such as dark matter to make up over 90% of their model to explain how it is possible. Having said this, I completely understand people's reluctancy to use gravity in any kind of discussion about the place we live. At the same time, most people who have never been educated on the subject correctly believe that the force holding things in orbit and the force making things fall are one and the same, in which lies the problem. It is hard to explain how this place works when most do not know how the laws of electricity control the world around us. I will try in this video to explain how incoherent electrostatic acceleration works while using examples that can be recreated by anyone. To start out, we will take a look at Earth's electrostatic field. This is important because we, along with all the matter in this known realm, are inside of an electrostatic field. The Earth itself has a measurable negative charge compared to the air above it all across the plane. As soon as you leave the surface, there is a positive charge in the air around you that grows in electrostatic potential the further you go up towards the sky. It is a steady, gradual rise in potential, which tells us, according to the laws of electricity, that we are between two Gaussian surfaces. A Gaussian surface is simply a surface that encloses or distributes a charge. If there were only one surface, the rate at which the positive potential grew would be different. Knowing that we are between two Gaussian surfaces, we can also know that certain phenomenon will take place in all matter within the electric field, or area between the two surfaces. For this topic, we will first look at polarization through electrostatic induction. Electrostatic induction is a phenomenon where the positive and negative static charges on matter are slightly separated or polarized due to the electrostatic charge of its surrounding area. If one set of the object's surroundings is positive and the other negative, the negative charge on the object will be attracted to the positive area around it, while the positive charge on the object will be attracted to the negative area on the opposite side. So here on Earth, the positive charge on our bodies is always attracted down towards the Earth, and the negative will be attracted to the air above. This phenomena creates a slight force in that downward vector, because as soon as we leave the ground, we start becoming positively charged by the air around us and are now forced towards the negative of the ground. This is electrostatic acceleration. One might think that the attraction from above and below would cancel out completely, but it is the electrostatic gradient that creates a flow from the positive above to the negative below. Think of the Earth as a flat strainer, and there is a constant flow of water from above, moving very slowly, always applying a force in a downward direction. This would be considered a vector. The electrostatic potential difference getting stronger as you rise from the Earth will keep a steady pressure from above at all times until it reaches the Gaussian surface above. When we reverse the polarity of the electric field and put a negative surface above a positive one, we can reverse this electrostatic phenomenon and get things to stick to the upper plate as if it were the ground. This works with all types of matter. You can move wood, iron filings, and even human hair with these forces. Believe it or not, you can even get water to bend. If the vector lines created between the two Gaussian surfaces are curved, all the matter will follow these field lines as well. In this demonstration, instead of using a flat plane, I use two circular objects as my Gaussian surfaces. You can see that as the water settles after being sloshed around by me turning the wheel on the Van de Graaff generator, it comes to rest with a curve in the surface following the electric field lines between the two spheres.
And notice, guys, that this is done with no physical contact whatsoever. This is done simply by the force of the charge potential between the two objects. And of course, this is something that the ballers, try as they might, have never been able to demonstrate. Leave it to a flat earther, though. So let's continue.
This is why the ionosphere, a phenomenon that has never been created in a lab, is a theory yet to be verified, but is needed to create this phenomenon here on Earth. Maxwell himself changed Ampere's law, which stated plainly that without matter, no electrostatic field can exist. Maxwell changed it with no scientific evidence.
Right, and the reason that Maxwell did that is because they had to explain their spooky action at a distance, right? This is the very thing that Newton said that he didn't want anything like this ascribed to him, right? There's got to be something there that is a viable connection, that is a measurable connection, right? And Maxwell just changed those calculations of Ampere as, nope, you don't have to have anything static to take on the charge, which is patently absurd. You most certainly do, because again, you're starting to go right into woo-woo fields of non-existent, matter or not. I don't even know what they're trying to describe, honestly, but they did that. They never justified it. And, it was a big mistake. And unfortunately, it's been too many physicists have left this error and have not completely torn it down like it should be torn down because it's point blank wrong. Let's continue.
Allowing it to gather magically above our heads in free space. Density and electric potential go hand in hand. The denser something is, the more electric potential it can hold. Not that I believe in the model of the atom, but even the periodic table has a distinction on the amount of electric potential there is in the different elements. In this demonstration, I have a metal button hanging from helium balloons that keep the button buoyant just above the ground. By only adding more electrostatic potential to the button, you can see it will appear heavier and force the buoyant object down along the vector lines created by the electrostatic potential difference. Without changing the density of the medium or the object, one can change the overall weight or gravitas of the object. To do an actual experiment on the topic of gravitation, this variable of electrostatic acceleration must be taken into account at all times.
That's right, guys. And remember, if we can not only sit here and vary the weight of this, thus its so-called buoyancy factor or whatever. And obviously, we just saw earlier where we can completely reverse this field to where it works in the opposite direction. And we have all this proof that is, that goes right back to electronics engineering 101, that shows you that this is how Gaussian fields work. What's the resistance? This is based on provable, scalable physics, right? We're not making stuff up here like the ballers are. This is not woo-woo, physics. This is demonstrable, it's provable, it's measurable, and it's real. So, making up things like relative density disequilibrium is just absurd. And trying to say that, the reason it goes down is because you lifted it up in the air and you gave it that potential energy. That is just nonsense. I wish these people could really hear how ludicrous that sounds, but whatever. Let's continue.
Now we will take a look at how different electric potentials of gases act in this electrostatic medium we live in. Gases have different electric potentials, just like all matter does. The gas molecules that can hold more potential than those gas molecules around them are theoretically more dense and will have a stronger attraction towards the negative ground below. When these gases are carried along the downward vector by these electrostatic forces, the lighter gas gets displaced and becomes buoyant until it finds a place with the same electrostatic potential. This is why we have a pressure density gradient and are told the noble gases work their way up into the higher elevations and collect in layers above. This has not been verified by anyone I know, so at this point I cannot say if this is true or not. Through this induction, some pretty amazing things happen when...
We do, however, have some pretty fabulous experimental evidence by, who's the guy that did the noble gases with the electric fields? Dan Dimension, that came up with some fabulous experimental evidence where basically all you do is you illuminate these noble gases, and in doing so, they then created another electrostatic field, which then causes a cascade effect, which illuminates more noble gases and carries the sky across, what we actually see, right? This is not light refracting through, the density variant of the upper atmosphere, especially since there really isn't any density variant in the upper atmosphere. It's mostly a vacuum, not a total vacuum, but a pretty good vacuum condition up there, right? So we have experimental evidence out the wazoo that shows that this is exactly what happens. And if you take those four gases, neon, and hydrogen, and not neon, the four nobles. I'm sorry, I'm drawing a brain cramp. And you stack those above each other by their electric number, right? They will layer on top of each other, and they will also display in perfect order the colors of the sunrise and the sunset. So would you call that evidence? I sure as hell would. I don't know how you can not call that evidence, because it's something that we can replicate right here on good old plain Earth, and we're not making crap up, from, just woo-woo land, which is what the heliocentrists like to do.
Large electric potential differences are applied to gases. When gases are placed into an area with a strong electric potential difference, we get the phenomenon known as ionic wind. If a person were to charge themselves up with 1 million volts of static electricity, they could blow out a candle almost 2 feet away from the gases rushing away from their fingertip because of the exceptional potential difference. We do know that when a gas loses its electric potential, it slows down so much that it turns into a liquid, like the condensation that forms on a window when it's cold outside. The gases hit the cold window and transfer their potential energy to it, trying to mediate the temperature.
That's right. And again, everyday demonstrable physics, nature even takes care of that for us. Nature is showing us how she does this. It's right there in front of our faces. We don't have to make anything up. It's right there for us to see. All you have to do is look.
In doing so, the gases lose their electric potential and turn into a liquid. Down here near the surface, the system is very dynamic, with all the plants and animals breathing, low altitude weather patterns constantly cycling, and Earth releasing gases from the deep at all times. We will never see all the gases lose their potential and turn into a liquid anytime soon, I hope. Now we will get to the incoherent part of the phrase. It is called incoherent because it is not completely polarized, like a magnet, but only slightly on its surface through electrostatic induction. A magnet with all of its potential stored on opposite sides would be considered coherent. Now these forces are very weak and only apply a slight pressure along the vector they create. All other pressure mediations, such as buoyancy, atmospheric pressure, and temperature, are certainly stronger, but nonetheless, these weak electrostatic forces are ever present in the world around us, and I fear the day they may come to an end. Again, I fully understand people's reluctancy to use the word gravity when speaking of this place we live. So instead, let's call it what it really is: incoherent electrostatic acceleration. Let's teach those just finding out the nature of this world in which we live the correct way. The fact that we live in an electric realm with a static electric field you yourself can go out and measure tells us without a doubt that these well-understood laws of electricity create the downward bias phenomena we witness all across the plane. Instead of using the word gravitation, I ask you to educate yourself further on incoherent electrostatic acceleration. This is Good Times for All here, signing out. As always, thanks for watching.
All right. Outstanding video, Zach. And, I can't say enough about it because you really nailed it. You really did nail it. You listened to everything that we talked about, and this is just the gold standard. It really is, for getting people to understand this. And this is the kind of video that you people out there need to spread to your more technically minded friends. This and videos like Dan Dimension, that are modeling this based on what we know is true. We know that we are on a flat Earth. We have evidence at the wazoo that there is a firmament, and we have so many things that are telling us what's going on here that I have no interest whatsoever in trying to explain how flat Earth works into the heliocentric model, because you know why? It doesn't work. It doesn't work at all. And so this is why I think we can make our own model and we can explain a large degree of this. And, the trolls are afraid of this. They're scared to death of this. Why? Because every damn bit of it is demonstrable. All of it. And, it does not help when you have flat earthers attacking other flat earthers, based on something that I feel that we have demonstrated a lot of evidence for, right? So, just stop doing that. You can have a different opinion. Nobody's saying you can't. But when you start attacking other people, it's absurd. And this is a problem that Jeran has a problem with. I've got a problem with. It just doesn't work. And it destroys the community, and it destroys the message that we're trying to get out. I mean, I may be 100% wrong. I don't think I am, but I may be. And if I am, I am. Well, that's the way it is. But until then, until I have something that has proven this theory as ridiculous or impossible, I'm going to keep pushing it. I'm going to keep finding all the evidence in the world I can to back it. And you guys, you better look out, because every week I've got something new that proves this. So, deal with it.
Yeah, this video, it did. There's some guys that have been working on a Tesla turbine for years now. I mean, they have the special magnets machined and all. The whole thing is it's amazing the way they have it set up. And, you know, I've been big fans of these guys for years. Well, he commented on this video saying he was just amazed at the natural electricity
evidence.
What's the word? Yeah, just the he was blown away by it. He's like, man, this is exactly how it works. This is how, you know, he thinks that Tesla saw it working.
I agree.
And it made me so happy getting a compliment from somebody that I've been following for years, and nothing to do with flat Earth or anything, all to do with electricity and stuff like that. That was just a reassurance that, hey, I'm on the right track here.
Yeah. And in addition to that, we also have, you know, some of our friends that are university professors over in the EU with multiple PhD and master's degree in electrical engineering absolutely agree with this being the way that it actually works. We have scientists and engineers from every walk of life that can see the logic in this. And, you know, it just makes a lot of sense. So, you know, that's all I'm going to say about that. But I really think that rather than tear each other down over this, we try and support each other and see how we can build on this and just make a case that is, you know, undeniable for us, and the Globers will never be able to prove anything against it. So there you have it. All right.
Can you real quick, oh, sorry, Jeran.
Go ahead.
I was just going to ask him to play the video I dropped in the live chat. It's just showing, someone asked a really cool question. What if you filled a room with fog and then went in there with like 1,000,000 volts of electricity on you? What would it do to that fog in the room? In this video, it's not that, but it kind of shows you how you can move the air around with electricity. This is what I did.
Okay. Hang on just a second. Let's go flip over to here and let's play this. So tell us what's going on here, Zach.
Yeah, I just have a nail hooked up to my Van de Graaff generator. I don't know. Are you guys seeing it?
Not on Skype.
Nope.
Really? Am I not sure?
They're seen on YouTube.
All right, hang on a second. I don't know what's going on here. Let me reshare.
I'm seeing it on YouTube. It's fine.
I can see it. I can see it on YouTube now.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, but it's pretty much just the Van de Graaff generator with a nail stuck to it. And I did that because electricity, it disperses at the lowest angle. So if you have a point, more electricity is going to come off that point than, say, a flat surface. So I have that nail sticking out, and then I let the smoke from I think that's an incense, just rise up. And then when I crank the Van de Graaff generator and apply the charge, it shows all those, that high potential at the nail trying to find its way out to the low potential in the air. So it's rushing all these, whatever you want to call them, particles. I don't know what it is, but it's gathering that high potential and then seeking out low potential. That's all it's doing. And it's moving, just like if you drop something, this is going from that high potential, but just straight out. And it shows the smoke being blown away.
Yep, beautiful. Okay, Jeran, did you have a question?
No question. I was just going to say that, the biggest problem for people is when they get stuck on a certain belief, right? So, I mean, that's the problem with creators in this community, is that I'm guessing it comes from ego, but it's when, you stand on one particular point and you won't get off of it, and you start calling other people names around it. And then you say how dumb they are. And then you say that they're gatekeepers. So when you've said all that, what you've done is you've cemented yourself in that belief. You can no longer tell your audience, oops, I was wrong. Oops, I didn't mean to call that guy a name. Oops, he's not a gatekeeper. Oops. It's easier just to take that and run with it and to stay with that belief. And that's the scariest thing for me. It's something I don't want to ever happen to me, is to get married to a belief that I start to realize is wrong, but I am in a position where I can't really say that I am wrong. So take RV Truth, for example, when he said Alex Stein faked his mom's death. Okay, so he's on that point now 100%, and he will never, ever see that he was wrong. He has to stick to that point. So he'll, when the AOC thing comes out, well, now he has to say that Alex is faking that. So it becomes this kind of a problem that I see all the time, and it's the kind of the scariest thing for me. That'd be the worst feeling, is to be in some belief that I can't get off of because I've made such a point of it on my channel. So to me, it just seems like we have to not set these traps for ourselves. And so if I've learned anything in 7 years, it's not to create a belief that I can't get away from. So even though I can say that I had a belief in relative density, that that's what I thought is all that was needed, I didn't see a need for any kind of electrical interference in that. But then the more you listen to these guys, the more you listen to Zack, the more you're paying attention. Then all of a sudden you realize, well, wait a second, our bodies are electric, the atmosphere is electrically charged. So we see this every day. And we know that we live in an electrostatic field. So if there was anything that was going to set a down direction and let relative density work everything else out, it is that electric field. So by not taking a position and being in a position where I'm going to call other people idiots and make videos and call other people idiots, is I'm able to switch my belief. And it's no problem, because I didn't make a show where I told people to lick my nuts. I didn't do all these things that are going to create for yourself a hole you can't get out of.
Exactly. That and that is so true. And that is exactly why, as we come across this information, we share it with you. Not only because we are obviously great believers in this, and the fact that we can demonstrate it in a multitude of ways, but if we're not seeing something that always gives you the opportunity to either make a video response to it, something obviously we would appreciate that has reason to it and not how do my nuts taste, that's never going to get anywhere. I'm never going to listen to that. Never. It's childish, it's ridiculous, and all you're doing is hurting yourself and the community when you take on that kind of attitude. So yes, I am more than willing to be wrong. I wouldn't be happy about it, because I believe very much that this is actually the way that this is working. I've been in electrical engineering my whole life. I know a lot about electricity. I'm a very good logical thinker, and every part of this in every way, shape, and form makes perfect sense, and every aspect of it is completely demonstrable. What else do you need, right? What else do you need? But, I still have to allow for the possibility that I might be wrong, and I will. I won't like it, but if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. So there you have it. All right, so cool. All right, so next thing up, I guess, after now that we've got that out of the way, is, and by the way, I did put the link for the Austin computer system in the YouTube chat. I will put it in the Rockfin chat here shortly. Well, actually, while Jeran and Austin are talking about their presentation, I'm going to put that link in the Rockfin chat and show notes. And you guys, if you can make donations, that would be super great. Very cool. So Austin, Jeran, you guys ready to do whatever? And whose screen do I need to share?
It'd be Austin. It's mostly him. I was just helping last week, but I also love the subject.
Okay. So
yeah,
Austin.
so I'll
All right.
Hello guys, I just interrupt to say hello.
Hey,
Sorry
Drew.
for my delay. I was outside of the city, and it was a crazy traffic thing, and I arrived home 20 minutes ago.
Well, I hear you. It's crazy out there, isn't it?
Well, Sundays, good weather. I went to Zurich to say hello to friends, and when I start coming back home, it's the hour of everybody start going to their own homes and cities and things like that, and the usual thing. But I miscalculate the time to arrive and things like that. But a really nice day, and getting time with my friends here, and Spanish people. In German countries is not so often, so I take the chance anytime I can.
Awesome. Okay. Well, cool. We're glad you're here, and we're just talking about all these proofs of the realm that we are on, and what we can prove as flat earthers, which is voluminous, and what the ballers can prove as heliocentrists, which is virtually nothing. Of course, we all know that. So,
well, virtually maybe a lot of things, but in reality, nothing.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so let's see. That's not the right thing. So Austin, you are presenting, right? Yes?
Yep.
Let's go to speak. Let's go to content view. Okay, yeah, there it is. All right, so we're good. All right, so you are all set to go. Everybody should see the religion discusses science, and I'll let you guys take it away.
All right, cool. So to kind of pick up where we left off, the subject is religion disguised as science, and specifically that is the heliocentric model, as it has never been proven, and it is by definition a religion, a belief system built upon the doctrine of men, without evidence, that requires faith, and it's based on the idea that the Earth isn't special. We went over this quote by George F.R. Ellis. I'm going to read it again because I think Jeran and I both agree that this is a very good summary of what we're trying to convey. I can construct for you a spherically symmetrical universe with Earth at its center, and you cannot disprove it based on observations. You can only exclude it on philosophical grounds. In my view, there is absolutely nothing wrong in that. What I want to bring into the open is the fact that we are using philosophical criteria in choosing our models. A lot of cosmology tries to hide that. And that is the point. Not only do they try to hide that, they present their philosophy and religion as if scientific and definitive, effectively brainwashing the masses. And then so to kind of cover what we covered the most was kind of the Michelson Morley, which will come up a little bit more today as well. But I put right here, this guy invented special relativity to counter experiments that revealed the Earth was motionless in space. This eventually led him to general relativity, which forced him to accept a motionless Earth in the center of the universe as a viable cosmological system. And then I put awkward. So relativity starts with special relativity in response to Michelson Morley, and that's about light going in straight paths. Of course, that doesn't help you with this heliocentric religion because you have to have curvature. So it evolved into general relativity, and by the time he got there, he had to re-accept the Earth at rest in the center as a viable option to even postulate general relativity, ironically, and we are not told that. And then this is a little illustration to give people an idea of what Michelson Morley was, and so you shoot light rays in different directions, and the light ray going with the spin of the Earth should travel at a different speed than the light ray going with the spin of the Earth. So this is what is expected. There should have been a difference, but in actuality, you see that there was barely any difference at all, and it should have been much greater than that if the Earth is revolving around the sun. So what they had to say was that the actual measuring apparatus itself physically shrank, and that simultaneously time expanded physically and slowed down, and so it just looked like the Earth wasn't moving, even though we know it is. Okay, so there's kind of where we were, I guess, and then I'm going to come down here. I think we're somewhere close to here, and I'll just play from current slide, and then we can go through them, and anyone that's got anything to say or whatever. It's just a bunch of different quotes. All right, so there is no planetary observation by which on Earth can prove that the Earth is moving in an orbit around the sun. That's physicist Bernard Cohen. A couple of these may be repeated, even from last week, I don't know, but pretty simple, straightforward quote. To throw it back a little bit, I think that this is a funny idea that still applies today. And he said, I have already known a long time that we do not yet have proof of the system of Copernicus, but I shall not take the risk to be the first one attacking it. Alexander Humboldt. I think that's funny because that is actually what goes on today. People are just simply scared to go against the status quo, and that is the Copernican principle, which is basically a grasp at straws, desperate attempt to cling on to the illusion that atheism is somehow viable. All right, anyway.
Did you stop sharing, Austin? Sorry for interrupting, but I'm seeing a Witsit gets it now. I saw someone in chat also say it. That's the only reason I brought it up.
Yeah, he did stop sharing.
Okay, sorry. I'm gonna go confirm stop and then reshare, I guess.
Try that.
Sure, but...
There we go. We got it back.
All right, cool. Thank you for that, Zach.
Yep. Gotcha.
All right, cool, man. So thus even now, 3.5 centuries after Galileo, it is still remarkably difficult to say categorically whether the Earth moves. Physicist Julian Barber. This is a totally different world than what the mainstream would have you believe, right? As those of us who dare question the idea the Earth spinning and revolving are insane people. This is famous historian Lincoln Barnett. We can't feel our motion through space, nor has any physical experiment ever proved that the Earth actually is in motion. He wrote some infamous books, one of them about Einstein. Okay, now here's where we're going to get a little bit more into modern times, and then hopefully this can spark a discussion if you guys would like, but I think this stuff is pretty important, and we'll try not to make it too boring. So, cosmology is not even astrophysics. All the principal assumptions in this field are unverified or unverifiable in the laboratory, and researchers are quite comfortable with inventing unknowns to explain the unknown. How then could, after 50 years of failed attempt in finding dark matter, the fields of dark matter and dark energy have become such lofty priorities in astronomy funding to the detriment of all other branches of astronomy? I demonstrate in this article that while some of it is based upon truth, at least just as much of ACDM, which is actually lambda cosmic microwave cosmology, effectively, has been dropped by a paralyzing amount of propaganda, which suppresses counter evidence and subdues competing models. I believe astronomy is no longer heading towards a healthy future unless funding agencies rethink their master plans by backing away from such a emphasis on groping in the dark. And this is a guy, again, ACDM cosmology, which we'll kind of touch on after this. I have a slide, and the name of the book is also very interesting. How much suppression of credible evidence, and does the model really lead its competitors using all evidence? And that is, again, a cosmologist, Richard Liu. So I think that this is pretty point blank here. If you don't know that dark matter was actually initially discovered to be a problem as early as 1933 within the heliocentric paradigm. And it still exists today as something completely misunderstood. And dark matter and dark energy make up 95% of the universe, while ordinary matter, quote unquote, only makes up 5%. So to cover what that dude's branch of expertise, if you will, is, it's the lambda cold dark matter model, which is parameterization, which is creating parameters mathematically, right, of the Big Bang cosmological model, in which the universe contains three major components. First, a cosmological constant, first a cosmological constant associated with dark energy. Second, the postulated cold dark matter, and third, ordinary matter. It is frequently referred to as the standard model of Big Bang cosmology because it's the simplest model that provides a reasonably good account of the following properties of the cosmos, aka major problems that heliocentrism cannot prove, cannot even get close to explaining, or even present itself as viable, but we ignore because it's a religion. The existence and structure of the cosmic microwave background, showing that the Earth is the center based on dispersal of energy central to the Earth. The large-scale structure and the distribution of galaxies. The observed abundances of hydrogen, including deuterium, helium, and lithium. Of course, that is pseudoscientific spectroscopy, but nevertheless, using their own paradigm of pseudoscience, they are confined to claiming that they're seeing these certain gases in their same earthly spectrum, blah, blah, blah. Not what's supposed to be out there. There's way too much hydrogen in their own paradigm. The accelerating expansion of the universe observed in the light from distant galaxies and supernova, and that's a big one. So it used to be argued over whether or not the universe was expanding. Is it expanding at a constant rate? Is it slowing down? It was claimed that it's slowing down for a very long time. Now they have discovered that it actually has to be accelerative, and it's accelerating, and it can't be explained because there's not enough energetic force to make that happen. So trying not to make it too boring, but long story short, this paraphrased is, there is glaringly obvious problems in the heliocentric model from the surface to the deepest depth, and it can't even be mathematically proposed to this day. It's literally not even viable. The alternative is 100% viable and cannot be disproven, per even Edwin Hubble saying that. Yet it's all ignored, and everything is treated as if the religion is science. Okay. These are it's just kind of a lot, but I just think it's kind of important. So the next quote, the uniform distribution of burst arrival directions tells us that the distribution of gamma ray burst sources in space is a sphere or spherical shell, assuming the Earth is a sphere, with us at the center. Some other extremely contrived and implausible distributions are also possible, but Copernicus taught us that we are not a special preferred position in the universe. But Copernicus taught us like he's the priest. Oh, all praise Copernicus. He taught us right before tithing, Earth is not at the center of the solar system. The sun is not at the center of the galaxy, and so forth. There is no reason to believe we are at the center of the distribution of gamma ray bursts. If our instruments are sensitive enough to detect bursts at the edge of the spatial distribution, then they should not be isotropic on the sky, contrary to observations. If our instruments are less sensitive, then the equation should hold. Also contrary to observation. That is a Copernican dilemma to this day. After the detection of several thousand bursts, and despite earnest efforts to show the contrary, no deviation from a uniform random distribution in the directions of gamma ray bursts on the sky has ever been convincingly demonstrated. Jonathan Katz, The Biggest Bangs, The Mystery of Gamma Ray Bursts, The Most Violent Explosions in the Universe, Oxford University Press, 2002. Long story short, they can't explain all the questions that arise assuming that the Earth is moving, spinning and revolving within a giant universe can't be answered. And this is about the distribution specifically. It's point blank. They cannot even explain it mathematically now. So we live in a world where they've conflated math to reality, and yet they don't even have a mathematically viable claim yet.
And well, at least some of them can be honest about it, you know. Obviously not all of them, but some of them can be, and some of them see very clearly what's happening. And the reason that they are probably not more vociferous about it is because, you know, they will lose their jobs, you know, at best, their careers, possibly even, you know, their families or their life, you know. I mean, the elites are not messing around here. They are playing quite seriously with this, and this is all the marbles for them. So it's crazy to watch this happen.
Yeah, it's very wild. You know, it's gotten pretty bad if they're even speaking on it. To be frank, that's my take.
Yep, I agree.
So a fundamental presupposition of modern cosmology is the Copernican principle. Again, for the audience, if you were not here, it's a very simple idea. It's that the Earth is not important. It's not special. It doesn't have a special or unique position. There's nothing special about it. It's just some random tiny speck of dust that was coalesced via gravity, as was everything else that makes up the universe. And it is random, pure happenstance that we are even here. And the fact that life is sustainable is just based on the immensity of odds, although we will even probably have to invoke multiple infinite universes to answer those odds. Okay, a fundamental presupposition of modern cosmology is the Copernican principle that we are not in a central or otherwise special region of the universe. Studies of Typla supernova, together with the Copernican principle, have led to the inference that the universe is accelerating in its expansion. That's very important. Okay, it's not supposed to be doing that. They can't explain why there's not enough energetic force to make it expand that fast. It shouldn't be accelerating within their own paradigm, but that is what we are critiquing, their religion. The usual explanation for this is that there must exist a dark energy to drive the acceleration. Alternatively, it could be the case that the Copernican principle is invalid. Okay, so we have two options. Either we must invoke dark energy, undefined, can't explain it, not predicted, shouldn't be there, don't even know what it is, huge disagreements on what it possibly could be, we have no idea where to even start. Or the Copernican principle is simply invalid. Isn't that wild? Well, that's not an actual option, because that would go against our religion. So dark energy must be true. And so the other case could be that the Copernican principle is invalid and that the data has been interpreted with an inappropriate theoretical framework. You don't say. If we were to live in a special place in the universe, near the center of a void where the local matter density is low, then the supernova observations would be accounted for without the addition of dark energy. Timothy Clifton, Oxford astrophysics member. This is from 2008. I mean, I think everyone followed that. Very damning quote. Just comes out and point blank says it.
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. It really is. And you know, how many of these do we have? Especially over the last 100 years, these experiments have been repeated. You know, even as late as in the 80s. You know, Michelson-Morley, and so many other experiments with the ether. Every Nobel laureate so far that I've checked, you know, in the past decade, believes very much in the existence of the ether. And all of this stuff is going, you know, straight up against the mainstream narrative, or I should say agenda. And, you know, it's ridiculous. And all of these very, very credentialed, very smart people are trying to tell you people this. And believe me, if the ballers had one iota of evidence anywhere, you know, I mean, you would have thought, honestly, instead of the ballers saying, "Oh yeah, Bob Nodell proved the rotation of the Earth," and behind the curve that they would have gone back to the source, the same thing that Michelson-Gale discovered in over 100 years ago, and said, "Oh, look, here's the credential duo, and look, here is our Earth rotation, absolutely proven by mainstream science." Well, they didn't do that, and they didn't do it for a damn good reason, because they would have gotten their lunch eaten, right? They were up against a wall, and so they had to get really creative and really quite forceful and pushing this Einstein nonsense agenda. And I think I feel sorry for Einstein. I mean, he probably was not too dumb, but he was being forced into being, put into a position of a poster child for something that everybody, and I mean everybody, knew was complete nonsense from relativity on down. Relativity doesn't work. And of course, what do we get these days? We get the mainstream media, which, at every opportunity, this experiment proves that Einstein was right, constantly. It's like, really? Name one. There just aren't any. And that's what we have to take to the table when we discuss this with ballers. Demand the proof. There isn't any.
Exactly. And yeah, I guess I feel bad for him in the same way that I feel bad for someone born into like some quote unquote elite family that ends up being evil. But I feel bad for him, but he's.
Oh, you muted, Austin.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, but anyway, I was just saying towards the end of this presentation, it'll be very interesting. I got something to shed some light on regarding Einstein, which ties into you saying you kind of feel bad for him. All right, I'm going to try to read this kind of quick. Some of these are long. Dark energy is problematic. No one really knows what it is. But again, the other option is that the Copernican principle is invalid, so that's not even an option. We can make an educated guess and use quantum theory to estimate how much of it there might be, but then we overshoot by an astounding factor of 10 to the 120th power. Now, this is where you get the number that everyone's infamously heard from Michio Kaku. Right? So they're like, that's just that guy. Like, no, here's another guy saying it's about it's not either one of those guys. It's about applying quantum theory to it. So it's this huge disconnect, and if you use what we do know and is somewhat experimentally valid, as in it's in the physical world, you're actually manipulating real stuff and not just making stuff up on the quantum scale, and you try to apply that to the freaking universe, the cosmic scale, it's off by 120 zeros, 10
Right.
with the 120 zeros.
And the thing about that, Austin, is that they do that, and they honestly act like they don't understand it. And to flat earthers, it's really quite obvious. I mean, we know that we are in a realm that is considerably smaller than billions and trillions of light years across, which is utter nonsense. Light doesn't propagate that far, and they will try and disavow that at every turn. They will try and disavow things like the inverse square law, which it's a law for a reason, right? And that tells you that light cannot propagate forever. And the interesting thing also that people might want to know, I found this very interesting myself, is that when you are looking at RF propagation or light propagation, it seems that the inverse square law is the only type of signal attenuation that the mainstream acknowledges. Well, what about just the energy that it takes to propagate all that far, let alone having to cover double the distance, or 4 times the distance, or 4 times the area every time you double the distance, right? So they don't even put in any other attenuation factors unless it has to do with propagating through the atmosphere, and we're not exactly sure what type of effects those have. But theoretically, they would want you to believe that in a vacuum, that light and RF energy can propagate forever. And that's just nonsense. There's no way that it possibly can.
Yeah, it's all so crazy.
Yep.
If we apply quantum, what we can kind of see to the actual, we can't see it in the same material, totally different subjects, it's off by 10 to the 120th power. We just covered a quote from George Ellis. He alludes to something that he had said. He says, That is grounds enough, says George Ellis, to take a hard look at our assumptions about the universe and our place in it. If we analyze the supernova data by assuming the Copernican principle is correct and get out something unphysical, I think we should start questioning the Copernican principle. Whatever our theoretical predictions, they will in the end have to give away to the observational evidence. So what would it mean if the outcome were that the Copernican principle was wrong? It would certainly require a seismic reassessment of what we know about the universe. If the Copernican principle fails, all that goes with that, including the Big Bang, goes out the window too. Cosmology would be back at the drawing board. If we are in a void, answering how we came to be in such a privileged spot in the universe would be even trickier. Marcus Chown, Is the Earth at the Heart of a Giant Cosmic Void? New Scientist, 2008.
And think about it. They're just not going to go there because, number one, science is not going to take a hit like that. They know that what would happen to their reputation as being all about observations and that everything they've ever taught is true. So that's a problem. Number two, these men are atheists. So most of the ones who say the actual truth are not. George Ellis, these other guys, Baker or what the guy you showed there, they're not. But the ones that are will hold on to this as long as they possibly can because they absolutely despise God.
Yeah, and the irony is that, these atheists are trying with all their might to uphold an energy that was, or not an energy, but a theory that was brought forward by a Jesuit priest.
Right.
It's just ridiculous.
Yeah. And even more ironic than that is out of this pursuit to try to cling on to the idea of atheism, they've created a paradigm that still requires a creator anyway. So it's like, it's just a futile pursuit. It's very stupid. I mean, you can't have the heliocentric model without a creator. So
why not?
To break it.
Everything just came from something the size of a peach. It's easy.
Like, even if you just start the basics, like the fact that the sun and the moon look like they're the same size and we happen to be in this perfect zone where we have sustainable life and blah, 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 blah. It's called the fine-tuning problem. Like, even within their atheistic paradigm, they acknowledge there's a fine-tuning problem, and most of them go as far as to say, well, there's infinite universes happening, so eventually it would, right? It'd happen. You just say God, bro.
You just happen to live in the one where it's perfectly designed for us, and every other one we wouldn't be living. That's why it makes sense to them.
Yeah, like I'm gonna start making just say God jokes, like oh, gravity. Are you talking about the little G or the big G? The omnipresent, all powerful, creative force of everything. Just say God, bro.
Exactly. How could anybody possibly look out at creation and look at this biosphere that we live in and all the things that are happening, intelligently designed systems to be able to sustain us? All the foods that have been put there for our health. And it even some foods even take on the appearance of the organs that they actually provide nutrients for. You have, if man evolved from, some ridiculous fortunate happenstance, then how is it that all of these major functioning systems, the skin, the lungs, the liver, the heart, and the brain and all these stuff all came into being somehow by this random evolution, all at the same time in perfect support of one another and in perfect support of the environment that is also doing the exact same thing. I mean, seriously, I've made the joke that this kind of coincidence is akin to a Scrabble factory blowing up and all the little tiles falling down on the ground and forming a perfect Shakespeare novel, right? And that's,
that would happen.
You know what Lawrence Krauss would say, though? Lawrence Krauss would say, Lawrence Krauss would say back to Bob right now, he'd say, well, if there are infinite universes, correct. Infinite, so there's infinite possibilities. So the only way that we know about it is because we're here in that universe. It's that simple. That's like an actual quote from him, basically. So there you go.
Yeah, it's insane that they, like you said, Bob, it's like crashing a plane. You crash a plane 1 trillion times. It's never going to create something. Yet we're told that there was a basic crashing of gases and nonsense in space, and it created everything that we see. And then for somebody to say, I mean, this is why we let them get away with just the most nonsensical lines of thought that we've ever heard. They will just tell you, and people believe them because I guess they think they're smart and scientists, that everything that there is came from something the size of a peach. And they just describe it as, oh, it was a really dense peach. You're like, everything. Look around you right now in your bedroom or wherever you're at, and could all that fit into a peach? No, let alone everything that there is. But people have accepted that as being true. That is the going theory. And then we're called idiots because we come along saying, we're not so sure about that. Let's look at some other subjects. What? How dare you?
Yeah, it is patently absurd. It really is. And all we're doing is looking at it and taking on face value. And everybody else is off in La La Land creating these fantasies, right? Of things that simply don't exist and there's no proof of them whatsoever. And yet that's the only thing that they can do to prove this non-existent, nonsensical model. It's really a sad state of affairs.
It's impressively lame, man. It's impressive,
Yeah, it is.
All right, this guy's got a little cojones. He said, the Earth is indeed the center of the universe. The arrangement of quasars on certain spherical shells is only with respect to the Earth. These shells would disappear if viewed from another galaxy or quasar. This means that the cosmological principle will have to go. Also, it implies that a coordinate system fixed to the Earth will be a preferred frame of reference in the universe. Consequently, both the special and general theory of relativity must be abandoned for cosmological purposes. Y.P. Varsini, the red shift hypothesis for quasars is the Earth's center of the universe. Astrophysics and Space Science, page 43, 1976. Interesting enough, this is still a problem to this day, right? Like, they have handwave dismissal theories, but the reason these quotes don't just age and then they're not important anymore is because the questions still haven't been answered. So that's to address some like desperate Glober attempt to dismiss these quotes, right? Anyway, so this is one of the freaking fatherheads of the modern heliocentric paradigm himself, Edwin Hubble. Okay, he said, thus the theory might be valid provided the universe were packed with matter to the very threshold of perception. Nevertheless, the ever-expanding model of the first kind seems rather dubious. It cannot be ruled out by the observations, but it suggests a forced interpretation of the data. The disturbing features are all introduced by the recession factors, by the assumption that red shifts are velocity shifts, the departure from a linear law off redshift, the departure from uniform distribution, the curvature necessary to restore homogeneity, the excess material demanded by the curvature. Each of these is merely the recession factor in another form. If the recession factor is dropped, if redshifts are not primarily velocity shifts, the picture is simple and plausible. There is no evidence of expansion and no restriction of the timescale, no trace of spatial curvature, and no limitation of spatial dimensions. Moreover, there is no problem of internebular material, which is dark matter and dark energy, etc. Edwin Hubble, The Observational Approach to Cosmology, page 63.
Yep.
I mean, that is a crazy quote.
That's dead on. And not only that, Halton Arp has pretty much annihilated the idea of the redshifts, being what they tell us that they are. So, there's always another side to the story. And all this goes back to, the magnetic phenomena that's going on outside. And of course, we're exploring that. But, for these mainstream physicists to be acknowledging this, especially, power hitters like Edwin Hubble, and to be admitting all this is fabulous. But they just bury these quotes because this is exactly what they don't want anybody to hear. Not the universities, not the students, not the people that are studying this, not anybody, because it completely destroys their model and shows it to be as nonsensical as it actually is.
They bury the quote and then they promote the person, right? So they love to talk about Edwin Hubble because they want people to see him as this great scientist who discovered redshift. But he just said that if we take redshift to mean this, so they just claim today that it for sure is, but even he didn't know that.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, well, whatever works.
Yeah, we got the fatherhead himself back for some more. He said, if the redshifts are a Doppler shift, the observations as they stand lead to the anomaly of a closed universe, curiously small and dense, and may it be added, suspiciously young. Edwin Hubble, Monthly Notices of the Royal Astronomical Society, page 17, 506, 1937. So I'm not sure, maybe issue 17, page 506.
Yeah, you would think these guys were Bible thumpers, right?
Yeah, I'm telling you, I like the guy. If he could go to his grave not being like, "Whoa, dude," it's really crazy because he was forced to acknowledge this. But I think this is very interesting for people to really soak in, right? Because what is a redshift on the Earth? It's Doppler shift. So it's like the observation. If redshifts are what they are, then the observations show a closed universe that's small and dense. And may it be added suspiciously young. Suspiciously.
I wonder why
suspiciously.
Dude, the way he speaks is disgusting. It's so zealous, right? It's like religious zealotry at its finest.
And then
With
all the
someone's-
trolls go crying because, you're totally cherry picking, and they get mad at you for not quoting the entire book. And it's like, dude, come on.
Yeah, give us some
This is the main
context,
point
trolls. Give us some context. Prove us wrong. Try to explain to us. Show us how that this doesn't mean what they're saying when we're seeing that it means. You can't. You can just say cherry picking, and you think that holds weight
that
with
would
us?
require them to read.
Yeah.
They'd have to read and do research then, Bob.
I mean, they
They're
can't
not
just
gonna
watch
do that.
Man Dan and make fun of flat earthers. It's not
That's
their
right.
focus.
Yeah, I'm not sure they can read most of them.
Dude, that's why I call it the kryptonite, bro, because they got nothing. They literally just say that it's cherry picked, or they call it quote mining, and I'm like, okay, but it's not though. Like, that quote's fake, or it's cherry picked, or quote mined. That's just like the three responses that you get, or that they're really old and science learns things over time. What's it? That's how science works. You know what I'm saying? It's very funny. I think it's one of the most effective methodologies ever, bro. We have Kepler here. Of course, you got Kepler's planetary laws of motion. I demonstrate by means of philosophy that the Earth is round and is habited on all sides, that is insignificantly small and is born through the stars. So he demonstrates via philosophy that the Earth is round.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't sound like physical measurement, right? That doesn't sound like empirical. Your deduction that the Earth is round is philosophical. And of course, and that it's inhabited on all sides and really, really small and insignificant, and shooting through space.
Well, it doesn't even
interesting.
it doesn't even sound like a very good philosophical discussion when you think about it, right? It's like
Well, it is great.
yeah, but yeah, a philosophy only in that they don't want to admit the horror, right? The horror of the idea that it was created and it's a very small local phenomenon, and that we are intrinsically a part of this. And, this whole fantasy world that they've given us outside of it is nothing more than science fiction. It was written by Arthur C. Clarke. But yeah, this is, as far as philosophy, this sucks as philosophy.
Yeah, and it's painful, too, that they think that by digging down to the deepest depths of what we know and, basically getting down to the molecules or the periodic table, that they think that eliminates the creator. And it's hilarious. I mean, I could take the chair I'm sitting in and break it down to its tiniest little bits. And once I start naming all those bits and explain them to you, it doesn't make a difference that the chair was created. I can't then say, well, no, I broke this down to where it's smallest bits. So now we don't need a creator. Anybody smart would be like, yeah, you do. Who created the chair that you broke down into baby bits? They don't even get that. They think that because they are smart enough to dig down and say, okay, we can name all these elements, then they think that we don't need a creator because they're smart enough to decompose or deconstruct what the creator did. It's hilarious.
Yeah, it's like a child playing in the backyard with a plastic shovel and pretending that they're actually going to find treasure and then finding a spoon and like bragging about it.
Right.
All right. We got another Einstein quote here. The struggle, so violent in the early days of science, between the views of Ptolemy and Copernicus would then be quite meaningless. Either coordinate system could be used with equal justification. The two sentences, the sun is at rest and the earth moves, or the sun moves and the earth is at rest, would simply mean two different conventions concerning two different coordinate systems. Einstein infilled The Evolution of Physics, page 212. Of course, I do have to throw in there, they are, of course, not actually proposed with equal justification. One is built upon all empirical observations, evidence, and tests ever. Right. So
one is built on the bending of non-existent fabrics.
I mean, how could they be equally justified? In order to have a justified belief, one must fully understand the belief and then have some like substantial, at the least logically consistent evidence to support that. So I just think that's hilarious. But anyway, the way that the world is so backwards, we have to invoke this guy to show, look, man, when you're pretending that geocentrism doesn't work, you're disagreeing with Einstein, the guy that brought you the very glue for what you pretend to believe in. So,
well, relativity is in and of itself saying that you can never have a preferred position. So how do we teach children that this Earth goes around the sun? If relativity is true, that means you can't say that. Yet they teach it.
Yeah,
exactly.
And the thing is if relativity being what it is, we still have no evidence for anything that Einstein is claiming. You know, where are all these motions at? Oh, you can't detect any of them because it's all relative to each other. I mean, it is just double speak. None of it makes any sense.
Oh yeah, it's mistaken as profound too. That's what's so crazy. In the effort to explain the Michelson-Morley experiment, the thought was advanced that the Earth might be stationary. Such an idea was not considered seriously because we're religious zealots, since it would mean in effect that our Earth occupied the omnipotent position in the universe with all the other heavenly bodies paying homage by revolving around it. Arthur Otis, Light, Velocity, and Relativity, page 58. Okay, so we can't have that that can't be taken serious. That would mean the Earth is special. I have two things to say that might surprise you. First, geocentrism is a valid frame of reference, and second, heliocentrism is not any more or less correct. Astronomer Phil Plait, and it is very important to get all these different ways it's said out there, because the Glober will frantically find anything he can try to use to weasel his way out of some hypothetical of what it really meant or how he can dismiss the quote. So this one is very point blank, saying heliocentrism is not any more or less correct. Okay, which is actually not true either, but it makes the point. What they'll tell you, this is the number one quote they'll pull up saying that it's out of context, or that I quote mined it, because he does explain, and in other times that he writes, he explains why he thinks heliocentrism is better. And so they'll go grab those and they'll be like, see, you took it out. No, I'm presenting this as what it says, which is that this astronomer, Phil Plait, who is a modern infamous astronomer, is sitting here telling you that geocentrism is a valid frame of reference. And in fact, heliocentrism is not any more or less valid or correct. And that is the point, because it is taught as scientific definitive facts. There is no room to question that at all. You're dumb and ignorant and should be laughed at.
And he's also a shill that pushes that the moon landings actually happened. And all you have to do is take one look at the lunar lander, and it's over. And if it isn't over, then you have no brain. That's all I can say. I mean, what a joke.
Yeah, very crazy. Whoa, this one is long. All right. The explanation which had the most appeal in accounting for the negative result of the Michelson-Morley experiment was one that was literally dreamed up for that purpose. Very important quote. It is the so-called Fitzgerald-Lorentz contraction. In 1893, Fitzgerald suggested that all objects contracted in the direction of their motion through the ether. He reasoned that if ordinary objects flattened out upon impact with other objects, a rubber ball hitting a wall or a ripe tomato dropped on the floor, for example, then why would it not be possible for objects that move through the ether to have the force of the ether push them in or contract them? This would adequately explain the result of the Michelson-Morley experiment. The arm of the interferometer moving against the ether would be shortened so that even though the light wave traveling in that particular arm might be slowed down by the ether wind, this would be compensated for by having its path shortened. Objections to the Fitzgerald-Lorentz contraction hypothesis were rampant, as was to be expected, not only because there was no evidence to prove that such an effect took place, but particularly because Fitzgerald could not explain why objects would contract due to motion through the ether. The contraction hypothesis was originally advanced only as a possible explanation for Michelson and Morley's results, providing such an effect existed. Then, too, the theory said that all materials traveling with the same velocity with respect to the ether would contract the same fractional amount. Since iron is much heavier and stronger than wood, for example, one would expect a greater contraction for wood than for iron, but this, too, went unanswered. James A. Coleman, professor of physics and chairman of the Department of American International, whatever. I can't see, it's actually cut off. But anyway, So of the Department of Physics at the American International College, Springfield, Massachusetts. All right, very, very good summary there. And so the idea of it physically contracting wasn't even proposed by Einstein. It was proposed by someone prior to him, right? And he said it was the ether that did it. But then Einstein came in, absorbed it throughout the ether. And then, of course, the original postulation was also inadmissible because it didn't even have adequate explanations or answers for the phenomena we knew took place. So it wasn't viable. It wasn't taken seriously. And somehow, once people realized, well, this is literally the best we have to take that idea so that we can say, well, the universe always tricks us to make it look like the Earth's not spinning or revolving, right? And so, anyway, that's a pretty awesome quote. That's relativity for the layman. The Michelson-Morley experiment has thus failed to detect our motion through the ether because the effect looked for, the delay of one of the light waves, is exactly compensated by an automatic contraction of the matter forming the apparatus. Sir Arthur Eddington, Space-Time and Gravitation, page 20. And this is important because you got modern-day anti-flat earthers that will swear up and down that when you tell them, so you know you have to believe that the measuring apparatus in Michelson-Morley literally physically contracted, like materially, physically, and they will say no, or no, just about the speed of light, it has to be so fast, and they don't know what they're talking about. They just Google things and regurgitate the first article in bold, right? But here's Arthur Eddington, very infamous heliocentric priest, point blank stating that would mean that the matter forming the apparatus itself had to contract in such a way that it was an exact compensation for the difference in the light waves travel, quote unquote travel. Okay, and this is where you get the crazy idea of space and time bending and warping. It's because they had to say that. The failure of the many attempts to measure terrestrially any effects of the Earth's motion and physical phenomena allows us to, and so then he goes on to explain relativity's role in explaining away the problem. So this is just Wolfgang Pauli saying the failure of the many attempts to measure terrestrially any effects of the Earth's motion on physical phenomena. Thus, another physicist telling you can't measure the Earth spinning or revolving or its effects on the Earth. Okay, and all the Globers will try to say is this is talking about revolution, not rotation, and we will get into that. The data were almost unbelievable. There was only one other possible conclusion to draw, and that was that the Earth was at rest. Bernard, I guess it's Haffey, Michelson and the Speed of Light, 1960, page 76. So we have kind of backtracked a little bit, because I know they're kind of out of order, but this is where everything came down to. This was the most important time in modern history as it pertains to why people think they live on a ball that spins. Here's the legend from earlier. He said, it is shown that the cosmological interpretation of the redshift in the spectra of quasars leads to yet another paradoxical result, namely that the Earth is the center of the universe. Y.P. Barshini. This is saying, based on what we're assuming redshift is, based on what we actually see, based on the spectrum of the quasars, right? We have a paradox that, assuming all of our pseudoscience, if it was all true, that would show that the Earth's actually at the center of the universe. I mean, that's so funny. They came up with so many handwave dismissal theories, and then they put them all together, and then they just keep finding out that even if all those were right, it still puts the Earth at the center. So that's why you're getting physicists coming out and opening up about it, because it's so damning. It's so gone now. It's been so falsified effectively. Everyone knows it's not really the answer. Everyone in the field knows. It is only the layman in 2022 running around reading Google articles that thinks they know. Everyone knows relativity is bunk. Okay. Although dark energy may seem a bit contrived to some, the Oxford theorists are proposing an even more outrageous alternative. They point out that it's possible that we simply live in a very special place in the universe. Specifically, we're in a huge void where the density of matter is particularly low. The suggestion flies in the face of the Copernican principle, which is one of the most useful and widely held tenets in physics. Copernicus was among the first scientists to argue that we're not a special place in the universe, and that any theory that suggests that we're special is most likely wrong. The principle led directly to the replacement of the Earth-centered concept of the solar system with the more elegant sun-centered model. Dark energy may seem like a stretch, but it's consistent with the venerable Copernican principle. The proposal that we live in a special place in the universe, on the other hand, is likely to shock many scientists. American Physical Society, Dark Energy, is it merely an illusion? Science Daily, 2008. Okay, I mean, very clearly they are saying, well, either we have to believe in dark energy even though we don't know what it is and can't even think of a way to explain it, or we can't hold on to the Copernican principle. And since that's been held on to for so long, it'd be such a shift, such a reassessment, that it would shock many scientists and it would be held down. It's not really an option. We can't do that. It's unthinkable. You know?
It would destroy science.
Yeah, the illusion of confidence in them.
And when science goes away, guess where people run? Back to religion, which is something that these guys will fight their lives to make sure doesn't happen.
Mm-hmm. And the other thing is they will build up one side of their argument while ignoring the other most obvious conclusion, meaning they will say, well, the gravitational waves will affect the length of things, right? As dictated supposedly by the ether or the contraction, the Lorentz contraction, right? But they never are able to show us how something that is supposedly as powerful as the moon's gravitational field, lifting up thousands of tons of ocean, how is that operating then? Why can we not detect a interferometer field change there? We can in fact detect nothing coming from that. So why is it that we can detect something a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, but the very same principle, when we know supposedly that the moon is affecting the oceans, it doesn't detect that? It's ridiculous.
Yeah, so I mean, pretty point blank here. They're just saying that the dark energy, it's clearly contrived and a bit of a stretch. We get it, but I mean, the other option is that we would dare question our venerable philosophy, meaning like deserving of respect, or like
Our religious dogma.
Yeah, like grandfathered in, like pretty much written in stone philosophically. So it's literally, like you said, it's like a religion. It's like me walking up to someone that's been preaching the Bible for 20 years and saying, Genesis doesn't actually say that when you look at the Hebrew though, and then them just like freaking out and denying it and saying it has to say this. So it's like, all right, bro, whatever, man. I mean, just don't tell people that's what Hebrew says. All right. The Copernican principle states that humans are not privileged observers of the universe and provides our philosophical basis for assuming that on the largest scales, the universe is spatially homogeneous. While it is one of the foundational aspects of modern cosmology, this assumption remains untested outside of the standard paradigm. Though it may seem pedantic to test something so obvious, the standard paradigm itself is built on shaky foundations, relying on an unexplained, gravitationally repulsive, dark energy component for observations to fit the model. The implications of this cannot be overstated. Assuming that the laws of physics do apply equally everywhere in the universe, the only non-Copernican configuration possible is one in which we live in a place that originates from special initial conditions. In testing the Copernican principle by constraining spatial homogeneity, Wessel Valkenburg, this quote, I don't have the date on there, but this is a more modern quote as well. So just, I'm trying to emphasize the right words so everyone can follow them. I think that this is, again, pretty self-explanatory. They have to believe on this absurd idea or notion with very shaky foundations that there is like this unexplained, like undefined, repulsive, like as in it counteracts gravity. It's like a gravitationally repulsive. It counters what they claim gravity does, and in like immense magnitude. And they can't even come up with how it could possibly work. Like they don't even know what that could be. They have nothing in their paradigm that is allowed to account for it because they were limited to throwing out the substantive qualities of the ether. They had to throw that out, or they couldn't cling on to heliocentrism or Copernicanism, so they had to throw the ether out. And so now they don't have the substance. All they can have there is space and time. And since that's all that they have a serious problem because they don't have the amount of energy needed. And the types of motion claimed based on the quote-unquote fabric that is there doesn't account for what is observed.
Yeah.
So it's just a freaking, it's a rabbit hole of pseudoscience.
And interestingly enough, in modern day college curriculum, they have stopped teaching things like the Michelson-Morley and the Michelson-Gale experiment, or anything at all that introduces this alternative evidence, which is evidence and not some ridiculous conjecture. And that tells you a lot. They simply ignore it and stuff like that. So when they're doing that, clearly they're trying to hide things. And science is supposed to be, finding it, going where the evidence takes you, regardless of what that evidence is showing you. And where is it? Where is the evidence that's showing us anything about spinning in all these different directions throughout a universe? At all? It's just not there. It really isn't. And it's really, really crazy. Also, one thing I want to do is throw out a shout out to a couple of people. Frankie Ferd, thank you so much for the $50 super chat. Much appreciated. And Billy Zig, thank you so much for that also. And let me do this real quick. Hang on just a sec. Okay, and Salvatore Papadio, thank you so much for yours. And then let me go over to Rockfin really quick. And let's see. We have, where is it? Here it is. There it is. Okay. We have Julie Bennett. Thank you so much for that tip, Julie. That's beautiful. That really helps us out a lot. And it's going to help us get Austin going. And this is just fabulous. Earthburst Space Later, thank you so much for your tip. You're appreciated supporter, and you mean a whole lot to us. Annihilator Sapphire says, please put this towards Austin's computer. I will do that, sir. Thanks for the hard work, great content, and globe destruction and debates. Much appreciation for all you globebusters. Annihilator Sapphire puts another $10 in and says, I'm going to drive a few hours to test Magnetic Hill in Moncton, New Brunswick, Canada this week. Awesome. And don't forget that level. Take that level with you. What do I need to test? A level, take a phone level, and if you can get a spirit level, an actual water level, that would be great also, because they'll say, oh, well, if it's affecting the electronic equipment, it might be affecting the phone, whatever. So just try and anticipate the greatest deal of nonsense that you're going to get back as excuses, and just try and one-up them on that, okay? By the way, the Great Tidal Bore isn't far from there. One of the fastest on Earth, I believe. Coincidence? Well, probably not. And then Annihilator Sapphire puts another super chat in, says, assuming the moon isn't solid at all, I'm wondering how they claim to bounce lasers off the moon, going back to the mid-60s before moon landing even. Wondering if this is a bogus experiment, and how exactly. What is the explanation or refutal for this? Well, I got to tell you, man, I've looked into this, and as much as I have tried to get somebody to show me this, nobody is willing to come forward. And these days, they're using the internet as part of the catalyst for EME bounce, right, or propagation. And they're saying that it's taking the required 2 point whatever it is seconds for the round trip to get there and bounce back. But again, no evidence of that whatsoever. So I don't know what to say to that. I really don't. All I can say is that so far, nobody has showed me one iota of evidence on it. So I'm still looking. So if you guys know any ham radio operators that actually claim they can do this or prove it, put them in touch with me. I'd love to hear it. I'd love to give a full report on it and see exactly what's going on there. But honestly, I think in the long run, it's probably just another bogus, made-up type of thing, and we're just going to have to, go straight forward into it and debunk it. And lastly, Murray Cole gave us a tip through Rockfin. Thank you so much for that, Murray. And that is everybody for the super chats and the tips. Thank you so much. And back to you, Austin. One other thing. We will be putting this slideshow that Austin is showing here in the chat, for your use, because this is really a fabulous tool that you can, right at your fingertips, you can go through it and show this to people. And this is the kind of stuff that Austin does. And Jeran's also doing it, with his clip series. And I'll probably start doing it also from Globebusters, where we just get these best little clips out that you can have them handy and show them to people right away. But this is the type of stuff, this takes a lot of work to assimilate all this stuff. And this is the kind of stuff that Austin has done for the community and will continue to do for the community. And I think that, this is another great reason to really help him out, because he is one of our superstars, guys. So it will be in the show notes, and feel free to use it all you want in your debates with Globers. Okay, now I'm done.
Nice. I sent you the updated version because I had accidentally put the quote in the old one wrong, but
oh, okay.
It's all good. I accidentally attributed a commentation quote on one of the slides, I think. All right. So let's go on. The popular belief that Copernicus's heliocentric system constitutes a significant simplification of the Ptolemaic system is obviously wrong. The choice of the reference system has no effect on the structure of the model, and the Copernican models themselves require about twice as many circles as the Ptolemaic models and are far less elegant and adaptable. Wow. That seems like the opposite of what we're told, huh? Like, geocentrism can't work, parallax, and retro. Like, no, actually, geocentrism is far more elegant and adaptable, and it requires much less to be added to it on the fundamental level. I mean, that's pretty damning. Modern historians, making ample use of the advantage of hindsight, stress the revolutionary significance of the heliocentric system and the simplification it had introduced. In fact, the actual computation of planetary positions follows exactly the ancient patterns, and the results are the same. The Copernican solar theory is definitely a step in the wrong direction for the actual computation, as well as for the underlying kinematic concepts. On three planetary theory of Copernicus, Otto Neugebauer, 1968. So that's a pretty awesome quote. Thus, we may return to Ptolemy's point of view of a motionless Earth. One has to show that the transformed metric can be regarded as produced according to Einstein's field equations, which is a pseudoscience, by distant rotating masses. This has been done by Thuring. He calculated a field due to a rotating, hollow, thick-walled sphere and proved that inside the cavity, it behaved as though there were centrifugal and other inertial forces, usually attributed to absolute space. Thus, from Einstein's point of view, Ptolemy and Copernicus are equally right. I really want to make sure everyone understands this one. This one is super important, okay? So, so one has to show that the transform metric can be regarded as produced according to Einstein's field equations, by distant rotating masses. This has been done by Thuring, so he calculated a field based on a rotating, hollow, thick-walled sphere and proved that everything inside of that would basically be affected by the motion. There would be an effect within the system, so if you have something inside of a system that's moving, there will be an effect of that rotation on whatever's inside the system as well. Okay, now, if you start to think about how we have an ether drift and we do pick up something with gyros and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, it starts to make a whole lot of sense. It's an interconnected ether drift all the way up, and we're a body, quote unquote, if you will, within a system that rotates around us, right?
Yes,
so we would have an effect of that drift.
Let's not forget that ether drift changes speed at different elevations. That is huge, ladies and gentlemen, and that is something that is point blank impossible in the heliocentric model. Just want to make that clear.
That is correct. So so I really want to keep that one in mind, because I'm going to try to get to the end of this, and I have something pretty special to show you guys. So additionally, we must take seriously the idea that the acceleration apparently indicated by supernova data, that's the acceleration of the universe expansion, of the supernova data could be due to large-scale inhomogeneity with no dark energy. Observational tests of the latter possibility are as important as pursuing the dark energy or exotic physics option in a homogeneous universe. Theoretical prejudices as to the universe's geometry and our place in it must bow to such observational tests. Precisely because of the foundational nature of the Copernican principle for standard cosmology, we need to fully check this foundation. And one must emphasize here that standard cosmic microwave background, and not, I hate this word, not going to say it. Yeah, I can't say it. Studies do not prove that the Copernican principle, they assume it at the start. The studies do not prove the Copernican principle, but rather assume it at the start. All right, so pretty point blank here, which is this guy's being honest, and this is the same guy, George F.R. Ellis. He's just like a legend. He's actually honest. He's like, since everything we do depends on the Copernican principle assumption as the foundation, we should definitely check that. Since we now have observations directly contradicting and falsifying that, we need to check our foundations at the door and not let our ego get in the way. But we, of course, see what they have chosen to do, and that's 2011, so this is basically within a decade. So if Earth is at rest relative to the ether, then it alone is at rest. That makes us pretty special. Do you really want to return to pre-Copernican ideas? So you really think you and your planet are so special that in all the rich vastness of the universe, you alone can claim to be at rest? But of course, this guy seems to be not fully understanding how intellectual debate works or any type of consistency logically, because you would not be conflating two different models together and then pretending somehow if you do that the one model doesn't work because it doesn't fit the other model. That's ridiculous. So there isn't a vastness of the universe, Mr. Wolfson. I'm not sure what you're speaking on, but the truth is, just like your predecessor Edwin Hubble will tell you, is it actually appears that the what the Earth occupies, the area around it, is actually significantly more dense than previously assumed. And so everything is much closer, it's much more dense, and that motion has an effect on the stationary central Earth. So I'm not sure why it is that you wanted to strawman geocentrism, but you're apparently an expert and you get paid to say stuff like that. Okay, here's Isaac Newton. You may have heard of him, who, by the way, said if gravity exists, it's proof of God. In order for the Earth to be at rest in the center of the system for the planets, we've already read this one, so we'll go to another Isaac Newton quote. May not planets and comets and all gross bodies perform their motions more freely and with less resistance in this ethereal medium than in any fluid? Yeah, that's right. Isaac Newton proposed an ether. I bet you weren't taught about that. So, and all gross bodies perform their motions more freely and with less resistance in this ethereal medium than in any fluid, which fills all space adequately without leaving any pores, and by consequence is much denser than quicksilver and gold. And may not its resistance be so small as to be inconsiderable? For instance, if this ether, for so I will call it, should be supposed 700,000 times more elastic than our air and above 700,000 times more rare, its resistance would be above 600 million times less than that of water. And so small a resistance would scarce make any sensible alteration in the motions of the planets in 10,000 years. Isaac Newton basically explaining that actually the idea that gravity is operating in a vacuum, through the vastness of a vacuum, through nothingness, and matter is acting on other innate brute matter with nothing in between it, is to me an absurdity. And I please ask that no one attributes that to me, because that's insane. But a piece that seems to not be in his current print facilitated to the masses of his natural philosophy writings, he point blank explains that actually with a much more dense etheric medium, the motions are perfectly explained, and in fact, effortlessly.
Yeah, well, in fact, Einstein said he couldn't imagine a universe without the ether. And, you know, that's a very interesting quote that he would say that. And he also said that if any ether detection took place on any of these experiments, even just a little bit, it completely disproves relativity. Straight from the horse's mouth. Well,
Einstein said that.
Yep.
I'm sorry?
He said Einstein said that. I think he said Newton.
Oh, no, I meant Einstein. I meant Einstein. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
but yes, Einstein did say that. And it's like, wow, that's pretty revealing.
Dude, they buried so much stuff from Einstein. It's actually pretty crazy. All right, so everyone's heard of this one, but this is one I just alluded to. I'll read it anyway, just for context. It is inconceivable that inanimate brute matter should, without the mediation of something else, which is not material, operate upon and affect other matter without mutual contact, as it must do if gravitation in the sense of Epicurus be essential and inherent in it. And this is one reason why I desired you would not ascribe innate gravity to me, that gravity should be innate, inherent, and essential to matter, so that, you mean like emergent, like an emergent property, so that one body may act upon another at a distance through a vacuum, without the mediation of anything else, by and through which their action and force may be conveyed from one to another, is to me so great an absurdity that I believe no man who has in philosophical matters any competent faculty of thinking can ever fall into it. Gravity must be caused by an agent acting constantly according to certain laws, but whether this agent be material, immaterial, I have left to the consideration of my readers. Isaac Newton, a letter to Richard Bentley in 1692. Oh, sorry, muted. Most people have heard of that quote, but just throwing that out in the ether. All right, now we get some pretty good ones. Newtonian laws operate in a world model that is very different from everyday intuition because Newtonian space is infinite and homogeneous. Earth and its surface are not special places. The directions up, down, sideways, they're fundamentally similar, nor is rest privileged over uniform motion. None of these concepts matches everyday experience. They troubled Newton's contemporaries and even Newton himself. That's Frank Wilczek. I'm sure you maybe someone else knows how to say his name. Professor of physics at MIT, Nobel Prize winner of 2004 in his book, The Lightness of Being, Mass, Ether, and the Unification of Forces. We watched a video on here one time where we saw this guy talk about the ether in an interview, and the guy interviewing him was like super triggered about it. Like, how dare you be smart? But anyway, there you go, just point blank explaining to you Newtonian, the application of Newtonian even on a local scale is absurd, and Globers will run around telling you, oh, we still use it because they claim to use it for rocket launches. Oh, we still use it for engineering. They hijack Coulomb's law and electrostatics like Zack was demonstrating earlier. They tried to claim that that was Newtonian. On the smaller scale it can be used, but it cannot, and it cannot even work in the solar system. So I don't want to digress too much, but it's just been bunked for a long time. There's a Nobel Prize winner telling you that it's stupid. According to the standard concordance model of cosmology, over 95% of the energy content in the universe is extraordinary, dark matter or dark energy, whose existence has been inferred from the failure of the standard model of particle physics plus general relativity to describe the behavior of astrophysical systems larger than a stellar cluster, while the very homogeneity and I hate when it says that, isotropic conditions of the universe owe to the influence of an inflation field, whose particle physics identity is completely mysterious even after 3 decades of theorizing. Testing the cosmological principles should be one of the key goals of modern observational cosmology. Large angle anomalies in the CMB, and this is 4 different physicists, Craig Copey, Dragan Hutterer, Dominique Schwartz, and Glenn Starkman, who we read from earlier. Isotropy, I guess is how you would say it. All right, anyway. So we now have increasing direct evidence that dark matter does not exist in galaxies. Then it is unlikely that some dark matter is hidden somewhere else in the universe. Therefore, the widely accepted CMB cosmology is in difficulty. For the reason it is worthwhile to reconsider the expansion in the universe by starting from scratch. Our results, on 437, has the merit that it does not contain hypothetical stuff. Simply saying, see, ours is actual reality. It's actual observations. It's testable. It's repeatable. This is actually real. It's not just hypothetical, and it's contradictory to your claim that the universe is expanding.
So which one should we take? Which one should we use?
Yeah.
Pretty obvious.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's literally a religion, man. It's very eye-opening. Dark energy appears to be the dominant component of the physical universe, yet there is no persuasive theoretical explanation for its existence or magnitude. The acceleration of the universe is, along with dark matter, the observed phenomenon that most directly demonstrates that our theories of fundamental particles and gravity are either incorrect or incomplete. Most experts believe that nothing short of a revolution in our understanding of fundamental physics would be required to achieve a full understanding of the cosmic acceleration. That's presupposed. For these reasons, the nature of dark energy ranks among the very most compelling of all outstanding problems in physical science. These circumstances demand an ambitious observational program to determine the dark energy properties, as well as something seemed to mess the meme up. So very point blank here again, right? And it's very simple. They thought that if you look it up, NASA will tell you that after the Big Bang, the expansion of the universe was decreasing in speed. It was slowing down. But 6 billion years ago, mysteriously dark energy popped into existence, and then it began to speed up, and now it has an accelerating expansion rate. That is literally on NASA's website right now. Okay, so that's what they're trying to claim, because now they've discovered, it doesn't work. Because if all our other pseudoscience is real, it'd be expanding much faster. So again, there's just a lack of energy there. It's just clearly not what they said. It's a more dense energy field. It's a medium with an energy field, an indispensable energy field, just like Tesla said it was. Studies of the cosmic background radiation have confirmed that the isotropy of the radiation, or its complete uniformity in all directions, if the universe possesses a center, we must be very close to it. Otherwise, excessive observable anisotropy, I hate the word, man, and the radiation intensity would be produced, and we would detect more radiation from one direction than from the opposite direction. Joseph Silk, the University of California, 1980. All right. In the Friedman, sorry, I just want to try to squeeze them in. In the Friedman universe, one possible interpretation of the coordinates is that the whole space is on the surface of an expanding balloon and has no center. But in such a universe, there is no cosmic microwave background dipole, even in the presence of peculiar velocity. In other words, the observation of a CMB dipole excludes such an interpretation of the coordinates for the Friedman universe. Y. Tomazawa, University of Michigan, 2008. So from the CMB dipole and existence of a center for expansion of the universe. Michigan Center for Theoretical Physics. These are top-level people telling you point blank that the CMB data showed a dipole central to the Earth. It is not consistent with our claim of what's going on, and it looks like we're in trouble with the Copernican principle. This has been swept under the rug, though, and pretty much no one even realizes that this has actually happened. None of the average people. We found something very bizarre. There is some extra, so far unexplained structure in the cosmic microwave background. We had expected that the microwave background would be truly isotropic, with no preferred direction in space, but that may not be the case. The octopole and quadrupole components are arranged in a straight line across the sky, along a kind of cosmic equator. That's weird. We don't think this is due to foreground contamination. It could be telling us something about the shape of space on the largest scales. We did not expect this, and we cannot yet explain it. Wow. Dr. Tagmark, MIT professor of physics, and they still cannot explain it, by the way. This is still the situation. You see, the point is, they're just baffled and they're so lost, and they're in awe. They can't figure it out. But never at any point in time do they even consider their religion could be wrong. Very crazy. Dogma is the death of knowledge, man. One could just as legitimately assume the Earth to be fixed and the entire universe with its great spherical cloud of black body radiation to be moving. The equations are the same. Indeed, from the standpoint of relativity, the choice of reference frame is arbitrary. Naturally, it is similar to assume the universe is fixed and the Earth moving than the other way around, but the two ways of talking about the Earth's relative motion are two ways of saying the same thing. The relativity explosion, Martin and Gardner. Another quote, abstract. Using Mach's principle, we will show that the observed diurnal and annual motion of the Earth can just as well be accounted as the diurnal rotation and annual revolution of the universe around the fixed and centered Earth. This can be performed by postulating the existence of vector and scalar potentials caused by the simultaneous motion of the masses in the universe, including the distant stars. Wait till you actually update the medium, my man. All right. Do the heavens revolve or does the Earth rotate? The question is meaningless. A waitress may just as sensibly ask a customer if he wanted ice cream on top of his pie or the pie placed under his ice cream. Martin Gardner, The Relativity Explosion. Pretty point blank there for you. This is a celestial navigation instructor, or someone that at least was in the Royal Air Force publication on behalf of celestial navigation, like portion of the UK military, effectively. So one can, of course, believe anything one likes as long as the consequences of that belief are trivial. But when survival depends on belief, then it matters that belief corresponds to manifest reality. We therefore teach navigators that the stars are fixed to the celestial sphere, which is centered on a fixed Earth and around which it rotates in accordance with laws clearly deducible from common sense observation. The sun and moon move across the inner surface of the sphere and hence per force go around the Earth. This means that students of navigation must unlearn a lot of the confused dogma they learned in school. Most of them find this remarkably easy because dogma is as it may be, but the real world is as we perceive it to be. If Andrew Hill will look in the Journal of Navigation, he will find that the Earth-centered universe is alive and well. Darcy Pettyhoff, Royal Air Force College, Cranwell. I have seen videos and pictures of this physical publication, and you cannot find it online anymore. All right. No physical experiment ever proved the Earth was moving. Historian Lincoln Barnett, he wrote that book, The Universe and Dr. Einstein. We covered that earlier. Here's again Fred Hoyle. I'm sorry I'm kind of speeding up. I just know that I've been taking a while. Fred Hoyle coined the term Big Bang, basically making fun of how stupid it was. Today we cannot say that the Copernican theory is right and that Ptolemaic theory is wrong in any meaningful sense. The two theories are physically equivalent to one another. Science today is locked into paradigms. Every avenue is blocked by beliefs that are wrong. And if you try to get anything published in a journal today, you will run up against a paradigm and it will turn you down. Astronomer Fred Hoyle, wow, bro, you should come see us trying to talk to people on YouTube, my man. He would probably be blown away at what's going on now. We know that the difference between a heliocentric theory and a geocentric theory is one of relative motion only, and that such a difference has no physical significance. Same guy, astronomer Fred Hoyle. Here's one more quote from him. We might hope, therefore, that Einstein theory, which is well suited to such problems, would throw more light on the matter, but instead of adding further support to the heliocentric picture of the planetary motions, the Einstein theory goes in the opposite direction, giving increased respectability to the geocentric picture. Wow. That sounds like the opposite of what I was taught, guys. I don't know about you. All right. This null result was one of the great puzzles of the physics, talking about Michelson-Morley, at the end of the 19th century, 1887. One possibility was that velocity would be zero and no friendship would be expected, but this implies that the Earth is somehow a preferred object. Only with respect to the Earth would the speed of light be c, as predicted by Maxwell's equations. This is tantamount to assuming that the Earth is the central body of the universe. Douglas C. Council Physics Principle with Application. He actually wrote this textbook on physics for university. All right. Whether the Earth rotates once a day from west to east, as Copernican taught, or the heavens revolve once a day from east to west, as his predecessors believed, the observable phenomena will be exactly the same. This shows a defect in Newtonian dynamics, since an empirical science ought not to contain a metaphysical assumption, which can never be proved or disproved by observation. Oh, you mean religion?
Yeah.
You mean religion, bro. That's what you meant to say. It's so crazy. Dennis Schema, the University of Universe, page 61. 1961. Okay, so this guy is a legend. He has a PhD. He has been a professor, and he's an astronomer. Again, once more for the record, it has been shown at least 6 different ways this century alone that the equations in physics used by NASA to launch satellites are identical to the equations derived from a geocentric universe. Thus, if the space program is proof of anything, which it's not for all of those of you at home, then it proves geocentricity and disproves heliocentrism. The evidence for heliocentrism is even weaker than the evidence for evolution. Yikes. Astronomer Gerardus Bow, PhD.
Wow. Telling it like it is.
I'm telling you, man, these are so buried too. But what is less known is that Tycho Brahe, Kepler's tutor, isn't that funny? What is less known? Tycho Brahe, who was Kepler's tutor, again, he came up with the equations for planetary movement, developed a geostatic system that was just as accurate and elegant as Kepler's. The sun orbits around the Earth and all the other planets orbit around the sun. The trajectories are ellipses, and all the Kepler's laws are satisfied. Wow, because if you Google it, it'll say that the stars debunk geocentrism, bro. Right? That's what it'll tell you, that the retrograde debunks geocentrism. It'll literally tell you that on Google. Wrong. So here you go. It's a Newtonian-Machian analysis of Neo-Tychonian model of the planetary motions, 2013, university physicist. All right, moving on. We can take either the Earth or the Sun or any other point for that matter as the center of the solar system. There is certainly so for the purely kinematical problems of describing the planetary motions. If we wish to consider the Earth to be at rest, it will be necessary to give an annual epicyclic motion in every object in the distant universe, as well as to the planets of the solar system. We cannot dismiss such a procedure simply on grounds of inconvenience or quote-unquote absurdity. Sir Fred Hoyle.
Yikes.
Yeah, dude, these are so damning. I'm sorry, I don't know how many more I have.
That's okay. We can finish them out, whatever you got. It's no big deal.
Okay, cool. So often the simplest of observations will have the most profound consequences. It has long been a cornerstone of modern science, to say nothing of man's cosmic outlook, that the Earth attends a modest star that shines in an undistinguished part of a run-of-the-mill galaxy. Life arose spontaneously, and man evolved on this miscellaneous clump of matter and now directs his own destiny without outside help. This cosmic model is supported by the Big Bang and expanding universe concepts, which in turn are buttressed by the simple observation that astronomers see redshifts wherever they look. These redshifts are due, of course, to matter flying away from us. I have some typos. Under the impetus of the Big Bang. But redshifts can also arise from the gravitational attraction of mass. But if the Earth were at the center of the universe, the attraction of the surrounding massive stars would also produce redshifts wherever we looked. The argument advanced by George Ellis in this article is more complex than this, but his basic thrust is to put man back into a favored position in the cosmos. His new theory seems quite consistent with our astronomical observations, even though it clashes with the thought that we are godless and making it on our own. Wow. Editor of Nature magazine. That's point blank what it is. It's just because you can pick your quotes out, but you're talking to someone that's kind of open-minded. You can show them. Look, geocentrism is more viable than heliocentrism, and you should show them, because people don't know this, and they think that it's a fact that we're spinning around and all this nonsense.
That's right. And let's not forget Halton Arp, who has completely disproved this whole redshift thing and shown where the errors are. So, I mean, again, all the evidence is ours, people. It's all ours. They got nothing.
True that. So now imagine that the whole mechanism is picked up and put down again, with the sun fixed at the central position formerly held by the Earth. All of the geometric spatial relations of the Earth, Sun, and Mars are preserved. And since only the fixed point of the mechanism has been changed, all the relative motions must be identical. Yeah. So if you swap them, nothing else changes. The Tychonic system is transformed to the Copernican system simply by holding the sun fixed instead of the Earth. The relative motion of the planets are the same in both systems, and the harmonies are therefore preserved. Thomas Kuhn, The Copernican Revolution, 1959. Yeah, I mean, just how many can you possibly get? I know it's almost painfully redundant at this point. This assumption is made because it is believed to be unreasonable that we should be near the center of the universe. George F.R. Ellis. It's unreasonable. Well, how do you define reason? Because I think it has to do with logic, and you seem to have the definition reversed.
Yep. Austin, we probably don't have to go through all of these. I don't know how many you have left or anything like that, but we're gonna put this entire presentation in the show notes for people to go through on their own. But you have put in a lot of work on this, and Jeran did something very similar also in a couple of his videos, and it's just like, here it is, guys. All you have to do is do a little bit of looking. And every single expert, even the ones that mainstream considers to be experts, right? Like Fred Hoyle and all of these other astronomers and physicists, they are backing up essentially everything that the flat earthers are saying. And it's just unbelievable that no matter how much of this evidence you come up with and you shove it right in the face of the typical heliocentrist who is brainwashed, they simply can't see it. So again, don't know what to think.
Yeah, and some of them, like Hubble, it's just blatantly obvious that he is a zealot. He has a religious agenda that he's pushing, and he doesn't care to even be open about it. He says it openly.
Exactly. Can I just show the last couple things that I wanted to just the last couple slides, and we'll wrap it up. We were getting there, but it's a lot, man. I'm tired of reading, so I'm all for yeah. All right. I will say so. Okay, so the assumption is made because it's believed to be unreasonable that we should be near the center of the universe. We just read that, ironically, George F.R. Ellis. Okay, so we're gonna move on here. This is a letter that I found from Albert Einstein to Ernst Mach, and I will say it's not a very easy letter to find. You can screenshot it, and you can use Google to maybe search the image. Now that I found it, but so you know, you will not find it in English. You will not find it anywhere except for this one person that you can get their German writings from, a professor back in the day that had a copy of it in his book. It was so hard to get this. Okay, well, I reached out to some of my friends that live in Germany, and we got it translated. And so I want to read it for you guys because this is very damning, as of course they claim that they can detect the rotation of the Earth. All right, so here it is.
No, I'm the
Highly
only one that can make
appreciate-
that claim, Austin. Come on, get real.
Oh yeah, thank you, Bob.
You're welcome.
All right.
Thanks, Bob.
So, highly appreciated, dear colleague, and just you'll notice Einstein's like a fanboy. What a gamma. So, these days you may receive my New York work about relativity and gravitation, which has been finished after endless struggle and torturous doubt. Next year at the solar eclipse, we will see if the light rays of the sun are being bent or curved, if in other words, the fundamental underlying assumption of the equivalence of acceleration in the frame of reference on the one hand and gravity field on the other really applies. It's somewhat choppy again because this was translated. Your happy investigations on the foundations of mechanics, Planck's unjustified criticism notwithstanding, will receive brilliant confirmation. For it necessarily turns out that inertia originates in a kind of interaction between bodies, quite in the sense of your consideration on Newton's Pell experiment. The first consequence is on page 6 of my paper. The following additional points emerge. This is the important part. If one accelerates a heavy shell of matter, S, then a mass enclosed by that shell experiences an accelerative force. If one rotates the shell relative to the fixed stars about an axis going through its center, a Coriolis force arises in the interior of that shell. That is, the plane of a Foucault pendulum is dragged around. It is a great joy for me to present to you this, especially that criticism by Planck's, which we now know surely was published unjustified. With the highest honors, greets you heartily, your devoted Albert Einstein. Thank you heartily for the translation of our book. And this is, again, in a letter from Albert Einstein to Ernst Mach in 1913, June 25th, 1913. I put Albert Einstein, pseudoscientist. Yeah, so what he's clearly saying here is, well, yeah, actually, if the Earth is at rest and the stars are moving, you could also have a Coriolis force effect within the interior of that system, which can be thoroughly demonstrated. And I must now even absorb what you were saying about that to postulate my current version of relativity. So I want to extend to you an apology for basically people using what I said to try to bash you, because turns out you were right, and it does, and that would never prove that the Earth is rotating.
Wow. Nice cherry picking, Austin.
That's the whole letter translated. I mean,
wow.
It's crazy, bro. Yep. So that was the one, and then of course the one we've all seen. This is Edwin Hubble. You know, this summarizes the whole presentation basically, and we've all heard it. Edwin Hubble said, such a condition would imply that we occupy a unique position in the universe, analogous in a sense to the ancient conception of a central Earth. This hypothesis cannot be disproved, but it is unwelcome. It would only be accepted as a last resort in order to save the phenomena. Therefore, we disregard this possibility. The unwelcome position of a favored location must be avoided at all costs. Such a favored position is intolerable. Therefore, in order to restore homogeneity and to escape the horror of a unique position, we must compensate by spatial curvature. There seems to be no other escape. Edwin Hubble. So that is religion disguised as science, and hopefully that helped put things into perspective for some people.
Yeah, I'm thinking it pretty much had to, unless you're dead. That was absolutely an amazing compilation. And again, you know, anybody that's been researching this knows that this is absolutely true. And yeah, when this gets broken down and more people go out there, you know, armed with this, it's going to bring a whole new set of hurt into the ballers, right? Because they simply have no rebuttals for this other than calling us names and, you know, the things that they do so well, right? So yeah, great job, Austin. Excellent presentation, and thank you very much for this.
Yeah, of course.
Well
Thank
done,
you, and thank you, man. Big shout out to my boy Jeran, who compiled a bunch of them, and I just dug around for a few more. But yeah, like you said, I think if we can all figure out how it's not so boring and dry and reiterative, and you can just boil it down for people, this is a great first step to the conversation for people, because it kind of will break their cognition.
Yep, absolutely. Cool. All right, guys, so let's wrap it up. We're definitely at our 3-hour mark. And again, thank you everybody for the donations. And, you know, like I said, if you can, please get over to that donation page and make a donation so we can help Austin continue to do this. He's starting out a brand new wife and a brand new family, and got lots of things to do. And he's still got a lot of information that he's got to disseminate to the flat earth community, and that we can all benefit from for sure. So I think that's awesome. So let's go ahead and go around one last time for everybody. And Kyle, we didn't hear a whole lot from you, so let's start with you, sir. You got anything coming up?
I have so much coming up. I'm seriously sitting on my next 40 videos of content that I'm just waiting to get out. It's just a matter of trying to get it out fast enough. And if I could just make this a full-time thing and just do a video every day, I could do that. And so it's just a matter of getting there in time. So, yeah. This week, I really want to get this video out with Orphan Red, which is just amazing. Her observations on refraction, and I'm going to take that and expound on that and talk about just how significant that is. And that's just kind of my big goal for this week. I've also had Mr. Sensible. He's made a video about my angles of the sun, and so I'm going to do a response to that. And I also got the common ground debate that I was just challenged to, and I really want to get a video out on that. And like I said, I've got tons of content. It's just a matter of just trying to get it out as fast as I can.
Awesome. Well, keep them coming. We're loving it because I really like your videos and your approach. And even when you get Karina in there on them, that's it just, I don't know.
Yeah,
they just come across as great.
And hear more of them. She's been asking, oh yeah, I want to be in there. I want to be in there. And so it's just a matter of kind of coordinating our schedules and trying to get her in there.
Absolutely. Well, she's more than welcome for sure. And you know, the ladies in the Flat Earth community have lots of stuff to contribute. And I'm sure that Cami or Karen or, you know, any number of people would love to have her on and, you know, kind of find out what her deal is. So that's awesome.
Yeah, I'd love to. I've been thinking about like interviewing her and just kind of allowing people to get to know her better and stuff. She's been totally in favor of that. But again, that's just one more idea on my list of 40 plus videos that are just kind of sitting there in the drawing room.
Awesome. Okay, cool. So let's move on over then to Zack, Good Times for All. And Zack, amongst your other Iron Realm media shows and all that, you got tons going on, and we got experiments going on. So what are you coming out next for us with?
I'm not sure what next video I'm going to do, but I think I'm just going to do a live stream with the Tesla coil. It's so much easier that way than trying to explain stuff. That gives me a lot more time to just sit, and then I can answer some questions and stuff. So I was thinking about maybe doing that tomorrow after Karen B's coffee talk. Just hooking up the Tesla coil, moving the meter around it, and showing you what happens when I play with stuff. I still don't get a lot of it, like why it does it. I understand a Tesla coil now and what it does, but why it happens is still...
Yeah, I mean, I have to admit, when they described the theory of this, I'm like, they never taught this in school. It definitely requires a whole new, you know, concept in thinking about the way that they're describing that this works. And if they're right, then great. You know, I hope they are, because that'll help us so much more in trying to figure it out, you know? So, yeah, we'll be looking forward to seeing it.
Oh, I do know my next video. Cami just shouted it out, and yeah, it's going to be on the tides. Karen B put together some maps for me. I've been looking at them a lot more closely, and I'm now able to kind of, I'll be able to explain it. Iru had shared a map on the tides and how they match the magnetic field of Earth. Well, I had Karen, she's amazing at taking flat maps and making them like azimuthal equidistant in a, you know, that circular pattern. And it's crazy how they match up, these two different maps. When you look at them, yeah, it's really cool. So that'll be my next video.
Yeah, oh, it's no surprise, because the AE map shows us so many things. You know, when you look at the AE map, it shows us the ocean currents and the air currents for multiple different levels, and only on the AE map do they seem to make the most sense. And, you know, people's biggest problems are they say, oh, well, you think Australia is the size that it is or whatever. And again, we're not saying that Australia or whatever necessarily makes or breaks it, but there's also much more to the perspective that needs to be considered when looking at this map. and, how it's being interpreted. And that's something that, we're going to expand on greatly as we go down the road defining our model and ignoring the heliocentric model because it's just stupid. Okay? All right. So let's see. I guess, Austin, that brings us back to you. You're going to be moving pretty soon. What do you got coming up besides that?
Yeah. So yeah, we're just moving in the second. We're just gonna build like a little studio where I can do streams and films or whatever, and we can also record music. We want to like make an album or something. So we're just doing that, and yeah, I just want to say thank you guys for all the support and for setting up that fundraiser, and for anyone that's already donated or does, because it means a lot, and it helps a ton. It was many thousands to finish getting the Jeep taken care of up here with the transmission ordeal, and then many thousands to get into the house up front, of course. And then I'm putting another, all that I have left, really, even credit-wise, into building the actual studio room itself. And the help with the computer can't be overstated. I'm super grateful. So thank you to all the people that support, and thank you guys for setting that up. That means a lot. And yeah, we're gonna really knock it out. I have some crazy cool ideas that I'm excited about getting out there. So it should be cool.
Awesome. Okay, beautiful. And last but not least, we have Jeran from Jeranism. And man, you've been putting out a lot of content lately, Jeran. Really good stuff, a lot. I can't believe it. So what you got coming up next?
This week we got Wednesday at 1 Eastern, 10 Pacific. Jenny and David and I are going to be doing another Omegle flat smacking. So that's Wednesday. And then Thursday, I'll do another Speaker's Corner at 6 p.m. Pacific. And then Friday, the Jeranism Show. And that's basically it for now. The following Wednesday, we're going to do again the remote viewing experiment. Now that I think I've got it down a little bit better of what they wanted from me, from my end. So we'll try it one more time, see how it turns out. And that's about it.
Okay, cool. And people, if you can get this this fundraiser out there into your chats that you frequent, or your YouTube channels if you're a creator, then we can get this financed. And I think it was on Sean's, we got it financed in, I don't know, like a week or so, something like that. Didn't take very long, and it was fully financed. And that's great that the community is so willing and helpful in that area. But we just need to spread it around, and different creators. If you just kind of make that mention, leave the link in there, that would be outstanding. So cool. So all right, guys, we're going to call that a show, and we will see you back here again on Wednesday, unless something happens and it's changed to Thursday. But I don't know. Never know with me, but we'll see how that goes. And for another episode of Globebuster Tech. And we will continue on just kind of building this preponderance of evidence for the technical side of what we believe the flat Earth model observations are telling us, and where they will logically conclude to be. So with that, that's about all we have, and we will see you then. And until then, be good to each other. Don't lie to each other. Open your mind, because there is truth inside. But I almost blew that. Peace out, everybody.
Peace.
Peace.
Peace.